early because we have a lot of people coming in before I was ready to go. That's fine. I'm only a little bit upset. Hi. Hello. Welcome back, everybody, to the Daily Cooking Show, to the Daily Cooking Stream. You all here early, right on time. Hello to Liam. Hello to G-Spent Gaming. Hello to Two Dads Kissing. Hello to Sniper. Hello to Serena Chess. Hello to Dosky. Hello to Subs and Soda. Hello to Moonhump. Hello to Gudwuda. Hello, hello, hello. It's good to have all of you. Let me have a little sip of water. I was caught a little bit off guard. Also, hello to Laz. Hello to Bluestem. And hello to Muzzle. Welcome on in. So, everybody, I'm pretty excited about today's stream. Welcome on in. If it's your first time here, it's lovely to have you. I run the best and the finest cooking show on Twitch. If you're currently watching this live, it is now 5 p.m. Eastern Time, EDT, I believe we are now in. I stream 3 times a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. And today, everybody, we will be doing a soup. And we're not just going to be doing any kind of soup. We're going to be doing a completely loaded, absolutely packed to the brim, full of vegetables, a potato, and cheddar soup. And so there's a couple of reasons why this was the soup and the dish that I chose for today. For starters, I already had potatoes in my fridge that I needed to get rid of. And so a constant challenge for me, what it means to actually cook at home, is to look at the existing produce that which you have, and then you have to go ahead and decide, okay, how am I using this? How do I use this before it actually goes bad? My issue with potatoes is oftentimes, if you think about a lot of different delicious preparations of potatoes, also Laura, hey, thank you so much for the raid. If you think about a lot of different preparations of potatoes, thinking about fries, thinking about like a baked potato, thinking about like a mashed potato, none of them reheat all that well. I find that potatoes are best eaten just as they're cooked 9 times out of 10. And so for me, it's a constant challenge when I'm cooking at home is to figure out different ways to use produce in a way that actually lasts in the fridge properly. Also, hello to Pizza Face. Hello to Dirt McNasty. Hello, hello. So that is why I'm doing today's potato soup, because it's a really, really nice way of getting rid of a couple of older potatoes. We're going to have to trim them up. We're going to have to peel them. We'll cut them up. We'll be blending them down. And so, guys, it all starts with these. The entire inspiration for today came from the fact that I had these Idaho potatoes that I wanted to get rid of. Also, thank you so much for the gifted sub. Thank you, thank you. Guys, I have these Idaho potatoes that I wanted to get rid of. I have about 4 of these things. We're going to cook them down. They're going to make the soup really nice and thick and viscous and delicious for us today. And then we also have some onions for that classic allium flavor, for that classic sweetness, right? So it'd be really, really nice to have. And then here's the next thing that I wanted to do with today. I have here an entire bundle of spinach that I, of course, rinsed heavily to get rid of all the sand, put it through a salad spinner, and now have all the spinach. So here's the thing. I am constantly now challenging myself with how can I include as many different vegetables as possible into a dish. And so something that I really, really loved from the time that we did the pasta stream, the baked pasta stream, is when I essentially made this spinach bechamel. And so my idea today is really similar. I want to blanch all of this spinach, cook it down for just 15-30 seconds, and then we're going to be blending it with the heavy cream. So this potato soup is going to be absolutely saturated with all of the spinach, but in a really, really creamy form, of course. And the reason I want to do this is because it's just a really nice way of getting rid of and putting down a lot of different vegetables at once. Speaking of vegetables that will also be finding their way into the soup, I have some kale here. I just wanted to slice them up so the soup is not completely like homogeneous all the way through. The idea for me today is I want to blend down the soup. I want to finish it with some like nicely shredded kale, just for like a little bit of texture, just for like a little bit of a bite. And then we'll be finishing it off with a boatload of cheddar cheese. Also, hi, it's lovely to have all of you. Okay, let's talk about some of my other components, guys. I have here a pint of heavy cream. We're not going to need all of this heavy cream at all. Also, Cyberpath, they see you talking smack about kale. You don't want to talk smack about kale. Kale can be excellent and lovely. I just don't love kale in raw forms. But when it's cooked down, it's really, really nice because like that texture, it really, really clings onto soups. So guys, the heavy cream, we'll be blending this down with the spinach to obtain a spinach cream. And that's going to be really good. I have here an entire block of cheddar cheese that we'll be grating ourselves. And we'll talk about why we buy blocks of cheddar cheese and not pre-grated cheddar cheese or anything. We'll talk about the function of that. And then, guys, we'll also be doing this soup with a little bit of white wine. I have here a nice little bottle of white wine. It's going to add some nice acidity. It's going to add some nice sweetness into the whole soup as well once we do end up cooking it down. So in addition to that, everybody, we'll also be doing a tomato mozzarella herb salad. I have a bunch of cilantro, I have a bunch of dill, so this is kind of inspired by a caprese, except I don't actually have basil. I have here some of these heirloom tomatoes. You don't need heirloom tomatoes, especially this time of the year. They're probably not that amazing. I just saw these in the store, and so I decided to pick a couple up. So I have 3 big old heirloom tomatoes here. I just recommend, especially for like a raw salad, for a raw application of tomatoes, to really invest into like the best tomatoes that you can buy. What I do at the supermarket is, if it's like a cherry tomato, like a little grape tomato, I do pluck one off and eat it, just to get like an idea of its sweetness. And so we'll be seeing how sweet these are. We'll be probably adjusting it with a little bit of salt to see if we need to extract any additional moisture from it. Okay, so we have all of these really, really beautiful tomatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and set that behind me. And then of course I have the aforementioned dill and cilantro, and in the fridge I have some mozzarella as well. So guys, 2 things today. We're gonna be making this delicious potato cream soup with kale and spinach. We'll also be doing this mozzarella tomato salad. Is everybody ready? I wanna hear a nice resounding yes chef from everybody watching. I wanna make sure that you're all tapped in. If it's your first time here, welcome on in. We have a lot of prep to do. We have a lot of stuff to get done for you today. As always, if you have any cooking questions whatsoever, I am here to teach you how to cook, especially what it means to really, really cook at home. Today is all about using up these leftover produce, right? I have these potatoes, I have the cilantro, I have the dill, and I just want to show you all the different creative ways that we can use those up. At home, you're constantly racing against the produce, and I always love thinking about new and different ways to use them up, especially in a way that makes sense at home. A potato soup like this, it sits in the fridge super well. You can reheat it really, really easily. Other forms of cooked potato, they don't reheat all that easily. So a potato soup to me is an ideal home dish in a lot of different ways. I'm gonna be turning on the air conditioner so this kitchen doesn't get too hot. Okay. Also, before we begin, for everybody that hasn't already checked out my Patreon, you can type in !Patreon. I would love to be able to do this full time one day. And for that, I would need any and all help. It'd be really, really appreciated. So thank you in advance. So everybody, let's go ahead and begin with the blanching of the spinach. And so we'll talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay guys, so I have here a big old pot of boiling water. And so we need to first separately cook down the spinach. And there's a reason for this. With spinach, it has so much volume. If we were to just put this into a soup pot, it would completely overflow. But for those of you that have cooked with spinach in the past, you would know that spinach really, really, really reduces, it really shrinks, right? It collapses, it loses all of this volume, and then it becomes like this really teeny tiny bundle of cooked spinach. So we're going to give it a little blanching. In cooking, blanching is just as simply when you have boiling water and you're dunking something into boiling water, typically for under a minute. We really need to emphasize, everybody take notes. I want to hear a nice yes chef from everybody watching. Do not overcook the spinach at this stage. When we drop the spinach into the boiling water, what's going to happen is if you leave it in there for too long, the water is going to turn dark green. That dark green is both a loss of flavor and nutritional value. All we need to do is cook the spinach just long enough until it collapses. And so, in order to continue to stop the spinach from overcooking, everybody, we're going to go ahead and set up an ice bath. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a nice bowl that can accommodate all of my soon-to-be blanched spinach. Okay, and in here I'm going to go ahead and throw in a couple of big old ice cubes. I have like these ice blocks, if you guys remember them. And so, this is really, really important. What we're able to do is, once the spinach is actually done cooking, we'll be able to scoop it out and go directly into this ice bath, which is going to shock it and stop it from overcooking. Because if you think about it, the spinach, it's almost like a mop. It's going to pick up all of this boiling water, it's going to hold on to the boiling water, and then even in the ice bath, or like if you were just to take it out and put it onto a plate, it's going to continue to overcook. And so an ice bath is going to do a wonderful, wonderful job of mitigating that from happening. Okay, so let me go ahead and just pop out, one of these ice blocks, which is kind of easier said than done because they're pretty huge. It's one, and this is gonna be two, and we'll do this incrementally. Absolutely, G-Spent Gaming. That's exactly what we'll essentially be doing today as well. Okay, and out they go. Okay, there we go. So, two big old ice blocks, and then we're going to go ahead and just throw this back into the freezer. And guys, it's a good idea just to get this ice bath done and ready to go. The spinach, I promise you, it's only going to take like 15 seconds or so. 15 to 30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with some nice cold water. Right to my tap. Okay, and then this is exactly where the spinach is going to get plunged into once she is all done cooking. Okay, everybody, so let's head back on over to the stove. And let's talk about one of my favorite and one of my most underused kitchen tools, everybody. This is called a spider. I think this tool is essential if you're doing something like blanching or you're doing some like short pasta. It's really easy to go ahead and scoop stuff out. It's basically a strainer on a stick. Okay, and so this is a lot easier because if you think about it, it's like, okay, wait, I have to go ahead and take out the spinach. You go ahead and you dump out the boiling water, but then you still need the boiling water if you're doing multiple batches of blanched spinach. And also, in the time that it takes to take it and pour it out into a colander, the spinach could easily overcook. You could use something like tongs, but the issue is you're not going to get every single leaf and they're going to end up overcooking. So having that tool, having a spider, I think is something that everybody should have at home. It's really, really useful to cook with. So guys, all I'm going to do, we're going to do this in a couple of batches. I'm going to go in with a nice big generous handful of spinach directly inside, and this is only going to need 15 to 30 seconds maximum. Okay, we do not want to overcook this spinach, everybody. Is that clear? I don't want you to have mushy spinach. I don't want you to have completely flavorless spinach that is devoid of all of its nutritional value. So this much cook time, ready? 4 more seconds, ready? And out we go. Just take the whole thing and scoop it up into the ice bath, directly plunge it inside. Take all of the spinach, guys, scoop it up, and you can already see it's already lost a significant volume. And let's get the last of these leaves, the last of those stems. All of it is just going to end up getting blended down anyways. Okay, beautiful. So that's one little batch of spinach done. Let's go ahead and now do the rest of it, guys. So let's get this back on up to a nice aggressive boil, just so that we have a good idea of what the temperature is like. You can see that my water turned a little bit green. I think I was a little slow on taking out that batch of spinach, but it's okay. Again, you just need to go in there for about 15 to 20 seconds. Right, 30 seconds I think was actually really, really pushing it. All we needed to do was just to collapse the texture of the spinach. And if you think about it, if you try to blend the spinach beforehand, you have so much extra volume, you have so much extra water weight, right? You'll have to do that multiple batches in a blender. This is just a really, really nice thing to get done ahead of time. And also, as always, if anybody has any cooking questions whatsoever, I am here to teach you how to cook at home. Theoretically, you could do this in the same pot that you're doing the rest of the soup in, but it is such a hassle. I just prefer doing this in a separate pot completely. So let's go in with the rest of my spinach now. Right inside it goes, and 20 seconds is all it's going to need. Plunge it in. Make sure that all of it is submerged. Just mix it around, soak it inside, and we'll do 10 more seconds. 5, 4, you know what? I think I can just pull this now. Let's take it out of the boiling water and into the ice bath. All of it goes, guys. Into the ice bath. Beautiful. And that's it. That's all that we need to do for the spinach. We're going to keep this water because we're going to be doing something similar with the dill and cilantro later on. But for now, we can just go ahead and shut off the heat. Does anybody have any questions for me at this moment in time? And so just to show you once again, this is all that we are left with, guys. That entire massive bowl of raw spinach has turned into this. You do want to make sure that you're breaking it up slightly, because there could still be like boiling or like hot water like stuck in between the leaves, right? Because it's almost like a mop. It really, really holds onto water. So you just want to go in there, you want to break it up a little tiny bit, and then all of the spinach, guys, is going to get blended down into one beautiful spinach puree for the potato soup. So let's go ahead and just shut the heat off on this. We're not going to need this pot of water for quite some time now. And let's just close that bad boy up. Lovely. Oh, did I forget a leaf? My fault. Won't do it again. I do apologize. Dirt McNasty, I'm not entirely sure what that is. So guys, yeah, just take a look. And we're just going to keep it cooling off for a little bit. And then whenever we're ready to blend, we're going to be blending this down with the heavy cream. And then this is going to be added towards the end of the actual potato soup itself. Okay, so it's just going to go behind me. It's just going to go ahead and stay in that ice bath. Just stay in that water. And now I'm going to go ahead and just take this big old pot off of this because we're going to need that burner soon. Okay, and then I'm also going to go ahead and throw my heavy cream and my cheese into the fridge since we don't need them for a while. I have not had it. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to say it. I have not had a Korean rice wine before. Okay, everybody, so the spinach has now been officially blanched. Now we have to go ahead and do the rest of the prep for the soup today. So for today, we're going to need to go ahead and chop up some onions. It doesn't really matter how well of a job we do with those because it's all going to be blended down. We need to peel the potatoes. We're going to have to take a lot of time in doing so because the potatoes are a little bit old, the skins aren't as good, and we have a lot of different eyes in the potato itself that we do need to end up digging out as well. So we got to prep the onions, we got to do the potatoes. So let's go ahead and get a nice little jump on that right now. Okay, guys, so I have here 1.5 small yellow onions. Okay, I have half an onion because I was just using it for cooking earlier in the week. These are fairly old onions. We might actually need to end up trimming off a couple of parts from this onion itself, right? You can tell that it's a slightly overgrown onion because it started to like sprout up a little bit, and inside it's like slowly turning a little bit green at the end. How do I store half onions? I just put them like on a plate with a teacup over it to in a chest, or you can just put into like a Ziploc bag and it'll be fine. That's all that I really do for them. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and glove on up for this. Okay, just so that I get to protect my dainty little eggs in my hands. Let's put on some black nitrile gloves. By the way, if you're buying gloves for yourself, nitrile is my favorite material. It just bonds to my hands the best. I don't love latex gloves for cooking. Nitrile is typically the way to go. Although I don't know how allergies to these kinds of things actually work. Okay, so guys, here's what we're going to do. First and foremost, whenever you're chopping, whenever you're prepping, we always need a waste bowl because the waste bowl is the intermediary between your station and the trash can. Because the last thing that you want to do is to be picking up scraps from your cutting board into the trash, cutting board trash. Having this bowl that's right here with you on the table, yeah, you do get one more thing dirty, but it does make your life substantially easier. So guys, with a halved onion, right, root still attached, we're just going to go in there and we're going to peel this bad boy up. Now, again, we don't have to be too crazy about this because this is all going to get blended down anyways. I'm going to be slightly trimming off the green overgrown portion where it started to develop a little bit more onion skin. Okay, and guys, all I'm going to do with a nice sharp knife, a lot of people ask me, oh Dara, how do I stop crying when I cut onions? It's because your knife is dull. When your knife is dull, you're crushing more of the onion cells. They're releasing the compound that is making you tear up a little bit. Okay, with a nice sharp knife, you'll be A-okay. Is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef? Thank you. So guys, we're going to, this is the good end, this is where the head used to be. We're going to make a bunch of parallel incisions along the onion, and we're fanning it out. We're fanning it out, just like so, guys. Nice big beautiful onion fan that we have here. And now all we're going to do, we're going to now slice perpendicular to the fan to go ahead and obtain our diced onion. And again, for today, we don't actually have to be very perfect with it because it's all going to get blended down into the end product anyways. It does matter to still get good knife cuts because we're going to be looking to build up some really nice color on the onions themselves. Okay, so just cut that up. This was an old leftover onion that I had. The onion is going to be a really huge basis of the flavor for today's soup. We don't have a lot of really strong flavors. We're not gonna have like a lot of spices in this today or anything, and so we kind of need to go nice and heavy with the onions. The aromatic allium quality, the sweetness, that's going to be basically the base of the soup today. If you already have chicken stock, that's a really nice way of using up some chicken stock. I don't. I might just add some like instant chicken bouillon because I don't have any stock on hand uncharacteristically. And yeah, nothing wrong with powdered like chicken bouillon sometimes. Okay guys, and we're going to do the same exact thing to this onion. We're going to be cutting the head of it off, right? We cut the head off and then we take it and we split it right down the middle, and we split it right down the middle so that we obtain two flat halves that can stay nice and steady on the cutting board, and we can really easily get in there and peel this bad boy up. Peel up the onion, get that done. Peel up the onion, get that done. And in total, I'm using 1.5 small onions here. That might seem like a lot of onions for something like this, but you know, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from something like a potato leek soup for today. Right? With a potato leek soup, I mean, you're using typically an entire leek, which is also an egregiously high amount of onions, if you could even have that. Right? So let's just go ahead, and we're going to clean up our station a little bit because we have all of like these little onion scraps, right, that we don't want in the final product. Again, I'm using my bench scraper just to clean up my station as I'm going. And now, let's just go ahead and process up this onion in the same exact way as before. All we're going to do, we're going to make some nice parallel incisions all the way down, but we're still keeping it attached by the root of the onion, so we're not cutting all the way out there, okay? And now, we're just going to go back in. Oop, we have a little bit of onion skin left over. And we just cut. Nice and easy, guys. Nice, small to medium dice. It does not matter at the end of the day. It's all going to get cooked down no matter what. It's all going to get cooked down. It's all going to get blended down. So yeah, I had like these leftover slightly old onions. Really, really nice way of just using them up. And guys, whenever your cutting board gets a little bit crowded, the best thing that you could do for yourself is to use your bench scraper and then clean it up. Don't keep chopping onions on a cutting board that's already full. Make sure that you have a transferable, like a dedicated transfer bowl, right, which is this bowl right here, to keep yourself and your station nice and organized. Also, blobfish, welcome on in. Hello, hello. Okay, guys, we have one last onion half with which to repeat this process with. I'm going to actually just slightly trim off this root end because it's a little bit dirty and it's getting some of its roots and everything else. And once again, guys, we fan and we fan and we fan and fan and fan. Okay? And let's go ahead and just cut this up in a nice small little medium dice. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it done, get it all processed. If you wanted to have like chunks in a vegetable soup, right, then you would want to pay a little bit more attention to your knife cuts, because in that case, well, you're not really, really looking for, you don't particularly want to have like a mishmash of different onion shapes, right? You want those to be fairly consistent, depending on your intentions and goals. Okay, so 1.5 onions. We got them nicely and beautifully processed, guys. Okay, and now I'm just going to go ahead and just take a second and get rid of all of these different onion skins on my cutting board, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly rinse off my knife. This is a carbon steel knife that I'm using, and so it will rust if I leave food residue on it, so I need to go ahead and quickly rinse this off and wipe it off. So please bear with me for a moment as I get that done. Okay, my knife is now nicely and beautifully rinsed off. I'm going to go ahead and just wipe it off, make sure that it's nice and dried. And guys, we're going to just move on to squeezing the spinach. We're going to be squeezing it. We're going to get rid of all of that spinach liquid. Well, thank you, Jack. That's very nice of you. So let me just dry off my knife really quickly. Again, it's a carbon steel knife I'm using. You typically have a stainless steel knife and you don't have to worry about them being wet or anything. Right. And now, guys, let's move on back on over to Mr. Spinach. So Mr. Spinach, we're going to be using this bowl for the potatoes. And so we need to go ahead and squeeze out the water and get that already transferred and ready to go into my blending cup for today. So all that we're going to do, guys, we're going to pick up the spinach in small batches and small little handfuls and squeeze out the water. We don't really need all of that excess cooling water. It's going to make our soup bland at the end of the day. We just kind of want the spinach itself, a little bit of water, and then of course the heavy cream. I recommend taking small handfuls of spinach at a time, because if you take a really big handful, it's kind of difficult to get all the water out of it at once. Okay? So guys, we take it and we squeeze it and we throw it into the blender cup. And we take it, little small handfuls at a time. We take it and we squeeze it. And you don't want to squeeze it so aggressively that you're destroying it. Although the spinach, if you did cook it properly, it's pretty stable and it's not going to lose that much more flavor or nutritional value or whatever. Okay? So just take it, a nice big squeeze. Into the bowl it goes. Let's go ahead and repeat this with all of our spinach. And the reason why I love having like these ice blocks and not just like, you know, little cubes of ice is that the ice blocks are really, really easy to distinguish from like actual food particles, right? Because you're not trying to get any ice in this final product. You just want to get the food itself. So guys, I'm going through all of the spinach. Have I ever worked with nettle before? I have not. Nettle is typically foraged. Right? You don't like really see nettle in supermarkets, at least in the United States. I know nettle is quite popular abroad, especially in the UK. A lot of different foraging. Okay? So guys, we're just squeezing the spinach. We're squeezing out all that excess liquid, and we're going to just keep this existing green liquid here. That's where we're going to put the potatoes after we peel them. Smother the pan. It's been forever. It's lovely to have you. Hello, hello. It's nice to see you. So again, we're squeezing the spinach, guys. We're getting rid of all of that excess liquid. We're getting rid of it. We're getting it done. I haven't had lamps in a very long time. I think they're just fine. I just think in regards to a lot of different forage vegetables, Tarina, people have a lot of romanticization. People have a lot of mystique around them, when in reality, most of them are just kind of good and fine. Okay. Well, G-Sped Gaming, you would need some really, really tiny ice cubes in that case. Like tiny. And then they would just all immediately melt because of all of the additional surface area. Okay, that is more or less all of the spinach. I'm just going to go ahead and use my spider to get the rest of it, I suppose. Just because even if it's a couple of little teeny tiny leaves, I would prefer not to waste anything if possible. So just take that and scoop it out, and into my blender cup it goes. Take it and scoop it out, and into my blender cup all of it goes. Okay, sweet. So guys, that is now my strained spinach. I'm gonna go ahead and just set that behind me because we're not going to need that quite yet. Let's go ahead and move on to the potatoes for today. The potatoes, they're going to need to be properly peeled. Okay, because these are fairly old Idaho potatoes that I have here. The skin is a little bit nasty. They're full of eyes as well at the moment. So the process is as follows. We have to peel them, and then we're going to plunge them into the water just to make sure they don't oxidize. And then we're going to go ahead and dig out every single one of the eyes. So let me go ahead and let me tie my hair for this actually, just to make my life a little bit easier. And does anybody have any questions so far about this process? Okay. I do love saying plunge. I've been saying plunge a lot lately. It's a good word. Okay. That's right, chat. You want to hide your eyes, lest I go at them with a paring knife. Thank you, Smartha Pan, for warning the people. Gloves on. There we go. And now let's go ahead and get all of these potatoes prepped, everybody. First and foremost, you need a nice sharp peeler for this. You can use the old school method with like a paring knife, but that's only if you're like French and 75 years old. Okay, so I'm not going to do it. So with a peeler, nice and sharp, if you're struggling to peel something, it's a very good indication that you might want a new peeler. We're using our hand that's holding the peeler as the pivot, okay? And then we're going in nice, long peel all the way through. Don't worry about the eyes. We'll be digging them out. You don't have to peel over them or anything. Okay. So we're just going through and we're getting rid of as much skin as reasonably possible. These potatoes I did already scrub just to get rid of any excess soil that they might have had on the outside. So you can guys see, look at all of these different eyes. They're full of dirt. They're not going to be very pleasant. And this is why we want to puree this kind of a potato. That's why we have to cut into chunks and cook it in this kind of a method. This is the kind of a potato that would not be good for a baked potato. This wouldn't be good for doing fries with because you would have to go in there and dig out the eyes as you're eating. But this is why it is so ideal for a potato soup. Because of the fact that we're peeling it, because of the fact that we're getting rid of the skin, we'll have perfect access into the flesh of the potato itself, guys. Okay, and so this is a very nice way of using up these kinds of old, not so amazing potatoes. We're submerging it into the cold water just to make sure that the potato doesn't oxidize. If you leave an unskinned or a skinned potato out and exposed to oxygen, it's going to turn brown. It's going to change flavor and it's going to be dry and unpleasant. Why can't I leave the eyes? Because they taste grassy and like dirt. Texturally speaking, they're pretty unpleasant. So you're not gonna like die if you leave in the eyes snap or Robert. You're not gonna die or anything. It's just not a very pleasant eating experience. Okay. So we went ahead and we peeled up all those sides, and now we're just going to go around the tip and peel that off as well. Okay, and we did a good chunk of that. That one looks a little too green. What do you mean, this potato? I don't think the potato itself looks green. I think that might just be the camera. What, do you think this potato looks green? You know, it almost does. Well, it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be okay. Is it the world's freshest potato? No. Also, this bowl of water is green. It's sitting in the spinach liquid. I do just want to clarify that really quickly. But, it'll be okay. I'm sure of it. Okay. And we're just going through, guys, and we're getting rid of all of this potato skin. We don't want any little bit of it. We want all of it gone. All the way through. all the way around, top to bottom. Okay. Hello, John Dahlia. Welcome on in. It's lovely to have you. And let's peel off the tip as well. Okay. That looks pretty good on that end. And now let's go back to the other end. It is a nice peeler, Robert. Everybody should invest into, just a nice sharp peeler. Peelers, they really shouldn't be running you like more than $12 or $13 or anything. Just buy like a nice cheap one. If you trust yourself with a carbon steel one, they have a risk of rusting. But the beauty of a carbon steel peeler is they'll just like stay sharp for so much longer. This guy's going to need a lot of work to actually get him into an edible state. Yeah, a lot of parts of this potato that aren't looking so good at the moment. And that's why we're going to go at it with a paring knife. We're going to save these potatoes. Jack, you ask me, Chef, what mythical creature are you and what would you choose to be? A Pokemon, probably an Absol or a Zorwig. That's what my persona is based off of. I recently had a bad time where I bought some potatoes and they were quite green when I went to peel them the next day. My mashed potatoes were completely ruined. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that about your potatoes. Now, I don't know why potatoes would turn green. That is not something I'm too knowledgeable about. I guess that just might be a symptom of an old potato, if I had to like guess. But okay, guys, and we're almost done. Let's go through the last of it and get rid of any and all remaining skin. They turn poisonous. I think these potatoes will be fine. Guys, do you think I'm going to be poisoned by the potatoes today? I don't think they're significantly green. I think they're okay, personally. Okay, guys, we're going to go in now with a nice little paring knife. Not all of them, just that second one. I don't think they look that green. I think it's gonna be okay. We're going to now go in with a paring knife, and now we're going to just be inspecting it for any and all eyes. We're going to go in there, make a little incision, twist them off, look around. Okay, we have a little bit of an eye right here. Let's go ahead and pop that one out as well. Solanine is toxic. Well, I think my potatoes are fine. I don't think they're significantly green or anything. And if so, I've ingested worse things in my time. Okay. And let's just get rid of any and all remaining skin. Okay. I think that looks pretty much okay. This little potato seems to be doing all right. Let's move on to the next one. This potato, on the other hand, is going to need quite a significant amount of cleanup here. Hello, Windows Blue Screen of Death. Welcome on in. Yeah, these eyes, all of those just have to go, guys. Ideally, I could have probably picked a slightly bigger waste bowl for today. But yeah, it's an old potato, guys. It's not the freshest in the world, but that's okay because we're still going to be saving it. Oh, I think I see what you mean. About that having a very slight green tint to it almost. I think it'll be okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to us. Okay, get rid of all of that. And go in, another little incision all the way through. Beautiful. Oh, not the prettiest potato at all. Twist that off, and let's twist that off too. Okay. Okay, I think it'll be all right though. I don't think it's gonna be that significant of an issue for us today. Okay. I think we got this potato mostly cleaned up, save for a couple of spots that could do with a little bit more trimming. Okay. And that should be okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. But yeah, guys, that is the whole point of today, to use up these kinds of old produce, because I just had this in my fridge. This is the last of my last batch of potatoes. I didn't want to throw these away. And thus, we're doing this instead. So I'm just continuing to just trim and trim and trim and get rid of all of these eyes. Beautiful. So sorry about how repetitive of a process this is. It's just going to take, ooh, yeah, no, this one we have to go in a little bit deep to trim off all of that. Okay. How's this one looking? Is this one done? Almost. And that's just about ready to go, I believe. Okay, that should be all right. Also, breadworms, welcome on in. Lovely to have you. And let's go ahead and get the last of these out. So go in there with my paring knife once again, and we're digging out all the eyes. Dakota, it's been forever. Hello, hello, it's lovely to see you. I missed you. Also, hello to Count J-Bog. Welcome on in. And let's just trim this off. All of these little eyes, all of the excess peels, all of it has to go for today. Okay. Almost done, everybody. Also, Dr. Slowbro, welcome on in. Lovely to see you again. Okay. And a couple more. Peel that off. Clean that up. Get that out of here. Get it all ready to go for us today. Okay. Can I freestyle a cooking rap? No. No, absolutely not. That is, you will never, ever see me doing anything quite like that, I'm afraid. Okay. Guys, I think we have now officially cleaned up all of my potatoes. So the potato liquid looks like it's green because that's where I kept my spinach soaking liquid. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to exchange it so nobody freaks out. The water looks green. That's actually just from the spinach. So I'm going to go ahead and just exchange that really quickly for y'all. And then I will show you my beautiful prepped and peeled potatoes for today's lovely little soup. Okay, there we go. They're all ready to go now, guys. These are my potatoes. These are my 4 Idaho potatoes. For soups, I typically love Yukon Gold potatoes. I love how creamy they tend to make soups. And so Idaho potatoes, again, not the ideal potato. But the reason why I'm using this, again, is because we're cooking at home. And what it means to cook at home is to first use up the things that you already have. And we'll be getting into, of course, prepping it and chopping it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and set this behind me. And we'll just come back to the chopping of the potatoes in a little bit of time. Okay. Just had my spider fall into the sink, unfortunately. Just have to rinse that off really quickly. And I'm also going to go ahead and rinse off my paring knife. My paring knife did a wonderful job for us just now. Really, really helped us to clean up all the potatoes. Hi. So, everybody, we're getting a lot of the prep done that we need to for today's soup. We chopped up 1.5 onions, we blanched the spinach, we put that into the blender cup, and now we're going to go ahead and make the spinach cream that we're going to need for today. Okay, and the spinach cream, why is it really, really nice and delicious? It's going to be the thing that finishes off the soup itself. It's going to be added in towards the end. We don't want to give the spinach a lot more additional cook time. We're going to have a very green, very, very like green forward soup today. So let's go ahead and get the rest of my blender cup ready to go for us. So guys, once again, in here I have my spinach, and we're going to do roughly, maybe like half a cup of heavy cream. We really just need enough heavy cream to get this going, and then the heavy cream is of course going to contribute to the final viscosity of today's soup. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and go in here, and I'm going to go in here with roughly what I would eyeball as like half a cup of heavy cream. We're effectively making a creamed spinach, except we're going to be blending it and pureeing it all the way down. We want it to be blended and pureed all the way down because I'm not really looking for my final product to have any like spinach leaves to bite into, okay? And for the baked ziti, that was milk. There was no heavy cream in my spinach bechamel Torino chess. So guys, let's head back on over to the stove. I'm going to just set up my blending station really quickly, just have a board, and I'm gonna go ahead and get my NutriBullet. Also, it was important for us to shock and properly cool down the spinach itself, because if we put in hot spinach into this blender, it would have built up a lot of pressure, because this is not the kind of a blender that has any airflow on the inside. So guys, I'm going to go in here and we're just going to be blending it until it's all done. Does anybody have any cooking questions for me at the moment? All right, buddy, let's chill out a little bit. I think it might be struggling. My spinach might be a little bit too thick. So I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to shake it up with the rest of the cream. Make sure that there's no clumps of spinach. And if it is too thick, we'll just add in a little bit more liquid as needed. Okay, because I can already tell you right now, it's a little too thick. A little too viscous for us. Although it smells great. All right, so back to this. Right, take a look. Right, we have all the spinach puree. It's not able to blend nearly as easily as I would like because, again, it is a little bit too thick. So you know what? I do actually have some milk. I think I'm just going to do some milk instead of additional heavy cream. So it's not like too rich, so it's not too heavy or anything. So a couple of little splashes of milk that I have left over. And let's just go ahead and cap this off one more time. And let's get this bad boy back to blending until it's all nice and smooth. Recommended eggplant ideas? You know what? Well, first of all, let me just do this. It still seems to be a little bit stuck. There seems to be like some spinach paste around, so I'm gonna give it like a real bartender shake, right? Just to get everything nice and dislodged in a very, you know, dramatic fashion. Let's go back in. There you go. That's what we're looking for. Now it's blending. Is this just gonna need some more milk? I think we might even need some milk. Truly, he needs some milk. Sorry, there was a time and a place and maybe this was not it. All right, let's go ahead and do the remainder of all of this milk. And let's blend that up. And then we'll have my spinach cream ready to go. Okay, sorry, that was kind of embarrassing. I apologize. And I just want to make sure I'm not over whipping the heavy cream or anything, because then we'll accidentally make it into butter like a whipped cream, which is not what I'm looking for. We want a nice smoothie. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. Beautiful. And we're going to give it one more big shake just to make sure that all of the spinach is getting beautifully incorporated, that we have no more chunks, that we have no more bits of spinach paste. We want it all to be nice and smooth, guys. One last blend. Beginning now. It's all getting in there. It's all getting nicely and beautifully blended together. And that should now be my finished, basically like a little spinach smoothie in a way. So let's go ahead and open this up, which is now somehow sealed itself in the blender. Guys, this is my spinach puree, and this is going to be going into the final potato soup itself. I know it doesn't look like much, but it's going to be wonderful. My heavy cream might have accidentally started whipping, actually, now that I'm looking at it, which is kind of funny and might be a problem when it comes to actually heating it up properly afterwards. You can tell it's like it almost picked up a little bit of granularity to it. Uh-oh. Well, that's not great. That's okay. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. I think that'll be okay. That didn't go as planned. I think my issue there was blending it initially with the heavy cream and not with just milk. Hence its gritty texture at the moment. I can fix it with an immersion blender. I think an immersion blender is going to continue to, you know, I mean, I do have an immersion blender. I think that's going to continue to incorporate some more. So yeah, it got a little bit gritty. It's not as smooth as I would have liked, but I think it should be fine. At the end of the day, we'll see. Oh, in the soup itself, I will be using my immersion blender. I'm already planning for that. But already planning ahead of time for that. Yeah, I just tasted the texture, guys. We almost made this into like butter and whipped cream, but it's okay, because the starch of the potato soup itself is also going to help out with its final texture and viscosity. So that's a spinach puree. What was the takeaway from this? Blending it with heavy cream was probably not a very good idea. I should have only been blending with my milk. I just did not know that I actually had any leftover milk when I did begin the blending process itself. So let's just go ahead and clean up my station ever so slightly. Let's go ahead and now get rid of this standing blender, because we're not going to need him at least for a while. Okay, and now let's think about what else we need to do. We need to go ahead and prep the potatoes. We have to chop them up. We have to also get the garlic done. So let's go ahead and do that now. Oop, let's go back to the cutting board. And we're going to get a bunch of garlic cloves in here, guys, because I want some flavor. We don't have a lot of very strong flavor components in the soup itself. Okay, so I'm going to get like at least 3 to 4 garlic cloves or so. Exactly. Mistakes and issues happen all the time in a regular kitchen, and I think it's going to be okay at the end of the day, because the starch of the potato does give us a lot of, you know, it does give us like a lot of just like breathing room, I suppose, because that's not even close to being the final product. Okay, and let me go ahead and get my 4 garlic cloves out of the head. I'm going to go ahead and dump out my waste bowl. Lovely. set the rest of my garlic aside. And now guys, I'm going to go in with my bench scraper and we're going to give them a slight press. We give them a slight press so that we can separate the skin from the rest of the clove. So give them all a little smash, one by one. Okay? Where's my trash book? I put it behind me. That was an issue. And there you go. And one last one, give them a nice little smash. Beautiful. And now guys, because of the fact that we smashed it, we can just go ahead and easily get in there. Okay. And we can just go ahead and just take off each of the garlic skins. And now, I hate chopping garlic. Many of you know this. I hate chopping garlic. I hate it. It's sticky. It's unpleasant. I'm going to want minced garlic anyways. And so, I always encourage people to use a garlic press. A garlic press makes your life so much easier. So all I'm going to go ahead and do, guys, I'm going to just trim off the bottoms, the dried off ends of each of my garlic cloves. Right? Just off they go. And one last one. Beautiful. And now, into my cute little condiment bowl. Right? I love this stuff. Always have some nice little condiment bowls on hand. We're going to go ahead and press some of my garlic. So let's just go in there with the garlic clove, and we're going to take it, and we're going to just smash it all the way down. That's one. Perfect. And that's two. Okay. And that's three. Oh, there you go. And let's just go ahead and just scoop it back on in. And guys, this is the beauty of a garlic press. It's so much easier, I say as I drop it, but it's so much easier, it's so much more convenient. Garlic can be so sticky sometimes. It can be so inefficient to actually go at it with like a knife or something. I promise you, a garlic press is not an investment that you're going to regret, especially if, and you should be cooking with this much garlic, especially if you do cook with as much garlic as I do. Okay, so let's just go ahead and clean it up. Let's just get the last little tiny bits of the minced garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and just poke it with a little brush just to make sure that I have no garlic stuck in the holes, because that's going to make it really difficult to clean later on. Beautiful. So that is now all of my prepped garlic. Let's go ahead and also process up my kale for today. The kale, it's going to be added towards the end of the soup itself. The kale is not going to need a lot of cook time. The kale is only going to just be slightly softened. And so basically, I want a completely smooth, completely pureed soup. And then the kale at the end is just going to be a little bit of texture that's going to help cling onto the soup. The beauty of kale is that it is so curly and has so much texture that it really does cling onto a soup really well. I'm not going to use all of this kale for today. I'm probably only going to do about half of it. Favorite cream sauce to make and eat? I don't know if I have an answer to that question yet. I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit. So guys, we have all this kale, and so all I'm going to do, because the stems, you could theoretically eat the stems, right? There's nothing wrong with them, but the issue is the stems do take a substantial amount of time to cook. And for today, I don't actually have that kind of time. If you want to be able to cook the entire thing of kale, stem included, you're going to have to braise it almost like collard greens. Again, not time that I have the luxury of today, so I'm just going through and I'm ripping off the leaves of kale from the initial stem. Okay, kale replacement, you can do collard greens, you can even do broccoli, you can do cabbage, right? It's kind of like interesting because I feel like even though kale is in like the same family as like broccoli and cabbage, oftentimes I use it interchangeably with collard greens. But collard greens, they will need to take a lot more time than kale would, depending especially on the age of the plant itself. Okay, and let's go ahead and do probably, I don't need this soup. So here's the thing, kale, as opposed to spinach, it doesn't actually shrink down nearly that much. I only want my kale in as a little bit of extra nutrition and just like an extra vegetable for a little bit of extra texture towards the end, okay? And so I'm only going to use this much kale for today's soup, and I'm going to go ahead and just shred it up now. I don't love eating raw kale. I don't love the texture. I don't love the taste of raw kale. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this and just throw that on into the fridge. And guys, all I'm gonna do is we're gonna just take the kale and we're going to cut it up into shreds. Theoretically, it would shrink down if you were to cook it, but the issue is it would be like these massive leaves that would just occupy an entire spoonful. So for soups, I've actually really started enjoying thinly slicing my kale, okay? Because Dakota, I don't have an answer for you, and that's, I'm still thinking about it. So guys, I'm going to go in here, and again, I'm like going in with like some fairly thin slices. right? Because I want some like nice long strands of kale on the inside, and all of its curls are going to do a really, really beautiful job of picking up the sauce, of picking up the soup for today, excuse me. But I don't want massive leaves that just take over an entire spoonful of soup. So go through all of these bad boys, one by one, shred them up, do exactly what you gotta do to them, and they're going to be a wonderful texture in my soup. Does anybody have any cooking questions for me at the moment? So Dakota, you asked me what my favorite cream-based sauce is. Honestly, an au poivre. I love au poivre. Like a steak au poivre with the peppercorns, that has to easily be my favorite. And Jack, that's because it's a Twitch thing. That is just something that is completely native to Twitch itself. If I could disable ads in the beginning, I would. Mac and cheese is kind of a cream sauce. Well, yeah, I mean, you can do that with a Mornay sauce, right, with a bechamel, etc. It is a cream sauce, functionally. Okay, so I'm going through all this kale, guys. We're getting it done. We're getting it all beautifully shredded up and ready to go for today's soup. And the last little bits, just slice, slice, slice all the way through. And this is going to be perfect to then finish our soup off with. So I'm going to just go ahead and throw that on into my nice big bowl. I'm going to use my bench scraper just to assist me in being able to scoop all of this up, and into the bowl it all goes. Does anybody have any cooking questions for me at the moment? So we've gotten done all of the potatoes. We're going to now be chopping the potatoes. We got the onions done, right? We got those all nicely cut up. We're going to now be sauteing the onions, and while we're sauteing the onions, we'll be chopping up the potatoes. We'll add in the garlic. We'll deglaze it with some wine. We'll add in the potatoes. We'll add in some water, and then we'll let the whole thing beautifully, beautifully cook. And then we'll be working on the salad as well. So we have quite a bit of stuff for us to do today. Can you smoke kale? Well, you could theoretically put it into a smoker, but the issue is in a warm environment, it would just get really, really soft. Now, can you dry it and smoke it? I don't know. I do not know. Okay. So, everybody, the kale is all done. The onions are done. We're now going to go on over back to the stove. And here I have set up already waiting for us, guys, is a really, really beautiful large saucepan slash pot. It's effectively a saucepan because of the handle shape, but it's just big enough to be able to accommodate all the ingredients for today. So, everybody, I'm going to be doing a mixture of butter and olive oil. I'm going to be doing a mixture of butter and olive oil for today because we're looking for flavorful fats. We're looking for butter, we're looking for olive oil. If you have some sort of an animal fat, that's also really, really nice in an application like this. The reason we're looking for flavorful fats is because the fat is not just a tool with which to actually brown your vegetables. The fat is also as much as an ingredient into the final dish. So a nice glug of olive oil. And again, you can use either just butter or just olive oil. It doesn't actually entirely matter. I just like both for flavor reasons. But having a really, really nice, delicious fat like this is going to go a long way in your final soup, guys. And now, we do want a considerable amount of fat because we're looking to properly, beautifully fry these onions. We're looking to fry them in a generous, generous amount of oil, guys. Okay? We want them to be properly covered. We want to get them nice and golden brown, and it's going to take a process. It's going to take up a little bit of time. So let's talk about that process. Let's talk about this right now. And let's talk about why this is important for us to know and recognize. So, everybody tap in. I'm going to rant a little bit. There is a problem out there. There is a really, really huge problem in the world of food writing, in the world of recipe writing. I want to hear a nice yes, chef. I want to make sure that all of you are listening. There's a really huge problem, which is a lot of people, a lot of recipes are written that say, saute an onion, saute the celery or something for 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, no matter how hot your pan is, you're not going to develop significant browning whatsoever. Because onions, as are most vegetables, they're full of water. And so in order to properly develop any sort of actual significant browning, and the browning is flavor, that's the sugar's caramelizing, right? It gets a little bit sweeter, gets a little bit more concentrated. Okay? Oh my God. I have a delivery now, of all times, in the middle of my rant. That was my doorbell. Okay. So, let's do this one more time. It takes time to properly saute onions. It takes time because you need to first collapse the texture of the onions. It's going to release its liquid. And then once that water actually evaporates and the pan is dry enough, then the onions can begin to properly brown. So, we don't need to start off on a super high heat, guys. The entire goal at the moment is just to get the onions softened. We first soften the onions, and by softening them, we collapse the onions themselves. And then once the onions are collapsed, they'll release their liquid. And once the liquid is released, the liquid is then going to evaporate. And once that liquid is evaporated, they will be nicely and beautifully browned. Now, in order to both season them and to facilitate extracting a little bit of moisture, but mostly just for seasoning reasons, we're adding in a couple of big, generous pinches of kosher salt. And I'm going to go in now with a nice little wooden spoon. And we're going to be mixing around the onions and all of this fat. And so, guys, here's another thing. You might be asking me, oh, Dara, even if you're using cream at the end, why are you using so much fat for these onions? So I can tell you that, fat is flavor and all that, and that fat is delicious. However, there's a very important reason for this. I want you to try to fry onions in this exact same way with a teaspoon of oil in a stainless steel pan. What's going to end up happening is, so let's take all the stickage aside. What's going to end up happening is the onions, they're going to get browned along the edges. The edges of the onion might turn a little bit brown, but it's going to have a bunch of blind spots and it's not going to be a beautiful golden brown. The edges of the onion, where you cut it, will end up burning and they'll turn brown, but it's not actually going to be a properly fried onion. That's because all food is irregular in shape, even if it looks like it's flat. All food buckles, all food changes shape, and the pan does not. The pan is nice and flat. Also, it's my doorbell again. Hello? Who is this? Okay, I have no idea what just happened, guys. That's the second time this has happened. I'm not crazy about it. Okay, so, everybody, it's going to take a little bit of time. What is going on? Guys, hello? Hello? Okay. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit annoyed at the moment. I'm not very happy about this. So we're going to go in now. We're going to stir the onions. The smell is going to change. I'm a little bit thrown off. Okay, what is happening? What is going on? Dude, I have no idea what's going on. I'm so sorry. Okay, this is like freaking me out a little teeny tiny bit because I have no idea what's going on. Is somebody? Okay, there's nobody knocking at my door. I freaked out for a second. Somebody kept ringing my doorbell. Guys, we're back. We're fine. Everything is okay. We're okay. We're chilling. We're hanging out. So, what's going on? We're caramelizing the onions. We're slowly cooking it. We're doing this so that we can develop and build some really, really nice, beautiful flavor, guys. You can't get this sauteing stage done in just a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. Is there somebody knocking? I think I'm going crazy. I swear to God, I keep hearing knocking. Okay, there is no ghost. It's okay. I apologize, guys. I got a little bit thrown off. I got a little bit genuinely thrown off here through this process. So I do apologize for any and all subsequent delays as a result. Okay. Medium heat. We're sauteing the onions. We're cooking them down. We're trying to evaporate some of the liquid, and then we're going to get some really, really nice, beautiful golden brown onions. I'm going to just go ahead and quickly rinse off my knife because I have a moment of time. Rinse off my knife, get rid of all the kale from it. Okay, beautiful. Does anybody have any questions for me at this moment? We're doing the potato soup. We're sauteing the onions for it. The onions are going to be a really, really huge component of the soup itself. That's why we're using so many. That's why we're using an onion and a half, because we don't have a lot of very like strong flavor components. And so we really, really need the sweetness. We really need the aromatic quality for it today. Okay, so the onions, they're doing some heavy lifting for us. So guys, let's go ahead, and now, while the onions are still going, you can hear the sound changing. Once the sound gets a little bit more higher end, like a psst, that's how you know the water has been successfully evaporated, and the onions are now properly beginning to brown. And we're not looking for like a fully caramelized onion, right? Like you don't have to caramelize this for 45 minutes or anything. We just need to go for about like 15 minutes in total. The fats of different animals have different frying properties, like pork versus beef. Nipuresu, I actually don't think I can answer that question too well for you. I know that you get fat from like different parts, right? Like you get like leaf lard versus lard from other fats and other places. One thing that does come to mind is something like bacon fat, because it typically has a lot of like teeny tiny crumbles of meat inside of it, because it's not properly filtered. That does end up burning easily, but that's because it's not like a pure fat. Otherwise, Nipuresu, I'm actually not entirely sure. Yeah. You know, there's like a whole thing about like saturated versus like unsaturated fats and like different sections of the animal and so forth. I am actually just not an expert on that subject matter, and I would love to know more about it. Okay, so let's go ahead, and while the onions are going, because we still have a little bit of time before they got interrupted, we're going to just go ahead and cut up these potatoes. I'm going to be doing this over a different cutting board because the starch is really, really sticky and it can get quite unpleasant for us to go ahead and do other things later on. So I'm just gonna set up a different cutting board. And now guys, all that we really need to do is we just need to get the potatoes sectioned off into nice, I don't know, maybe like 3/4 inch slices or so. The potatoes are going to cook down, they're going to break down. And the reason why I'm cutting them so small is just so that they cook quickly. I want to cook them quickly, okay? And then as soon as they get soft, we'll be able to puree them beautifully. For something like a potato soup, I do find that you can't really overcook your potatoes or anything, because you do want them to effectively turn into mush. You want them to be mushy enough that they do end up pureeing. And everybody, now that we're in the actual proper sauteing stage of the onion itself, this is where we need to be mixing it a little bit more often. You want to ensure that there is no onion stuck to the sides of the pan, because you can risk burning the onion at that point. And now we're just going to go through and continue to slice one by one. Beautiful. Let's get all of these potatoes done. Everybody, again, I really, really apologize for getting a little bit frazzled. We're back in it though. We're doing okay. Everything is going to be all right. Me reassuring myself. Okay. And that one's done. Lovely. And one last potato to go, guys. And all of these potatoes, they're going to be the base of today's soup. This was the inspiration for today's soup. I had a bunch of these old leftover Idaho potatoes, and this is a really, really nice way of using up a bunch of potatoes at once. And this is also one of the most ideal home preparations of potatoes. Potatoes, oftentimes, when you reheat them, especially if they've been baked or fried or roasted, they get a little bit stale. They get a little bit stale, and they're never as good the next day. With something like a potato soup, or with something like a mashed potato, right? In the format of like a boiled and cooked potato in that way, it does tend to hold on a lot better in the fridge, and it's really, really reheatable, which is why I think I would constitute it as optimal home cooking. So guys, let's go ahead and head back on over to the onions. And as you can see, now they're really, really starting to shrink. They've really reduced. Right? We had a big pile of onions in here, and now they're turning a nice and beautifully golden brown. So again, the reason why we need this much fat in the onions, we need the fat to properly cover the onions. Okay, we want them to properly cover the onions so that they're nicely and beautifully and evenly browning. If you did not have enough fat in this pan, the onions would be sticking, the edges of it would be scorching, and the middle of it wouldn't be getting evenly golden brown. Okay, so even though you might look at it and say that's a lot of fat, we're going to have a lot of liquid, it's going to be a properly balanced soup at the end of the day. Okay, and fat is something to be embraced. Okay, It's something to be embraced. It's something to be appreciated, not necessarily always something to be avoided in food. And this is why, again, I want to emphasize we want a tasty fat, something like the butter, something like the olive oil, because all of it is going to get blended into the soup. And so we don't want to use a neutral oil, like a canola oil or like a peanut oil or anything, because at that point, I mean, it's not even it's just like a fairly either neutral flavor at best or an unpleasant one at worst. So guys, nicely, beautifully, golden brown onions. Again, we're continuing on a medium heat here. Nice. And so, this is the order of operations that we need to get done, guys. Everybody tap in. Is everybody still listening? Is everybody still paying attention? I want to hear a nice yes, chef, please, and thank you. Here is our remaining order of operations. So what we need to do, we need to go ahead and add the garlic after the onions are done cooking. Why do we add the garlic later on? It's because if we added the garlic sooner, the garlic would have ended up burning. On the bottom of this pan, we have all of these really, really beautiful stuck sugars, right? Because as the onion releases liquid and the water evaporates, what is left behind are all the little teeny tiny sugars of that onion. Once the garlic is done cooking, we're going to be deglazing it with some white wine. By putting in something liquidy again, we're going to essentially dissolve all of the different stuck, we have some of the proteins from the butter that are stuck to the bottom, and then we also have some of the sugars from the onion. They're going to dissolve back into the wine and make sure that we don't squelch them, but that they're now properly and beautifully dissolved into our soup itself. Okay, so the onions are almost done. Again, I'm not really going through a full caramelized onion for this, although you absolutely can if you would like to. Okay, you absolutely can. And again, if you have chicken broth, I would really highly recommend using chicken broth. For today instead, because I do lack chicken broth, I'm just using, some chicken flavored bouillon powder. I hate box stock. I think box stock is an absolute waste of money. So I'd recommend either using this or better than bouillon or something. I just so happen to have this at home because I do a lot of Mexican cooking, do a lot of Mexican food. So guys, my onions are just about ready to go. Oh, and I just shoved my entire hand onto the hot pan. Let me go ahead and cool that off under some running water. Ow. That really hurt. Okay. What kind of vegetable stock would I recommend from this? Anything except a mushroom stock marzipan. I feel like in my mind, I was thinking about this beforehand, I would do any kind of vegetable stock, especially like a mirepoix based one. I feel like a mushroom stock would bring a lot of additional flavors that might not be welcome with the other kind of vegetables that we have. So guys, all of the onions are now beautifully golden brown, and now we have to act fast. We add in the garlic, and the garlic, we're not looking to cook it for more than a minute or so. The garlic, we're just going to go ahead and make sure that it's properly frying in the oil, but we're mixing it all the time. And the reason why we need to mix it all the time is because if we just leave it by itself for too long, it'll scorch and turn bitter and unpleasant. But we still want to be able to fry it, we still want to be able to develop some of the sweetness, and we still want to infuse the fat with all of those delicious garlicky flavors. On the edges of my pan, I have all of this delicious built up sugar from the onions themselves. And that is all going to be deglazed with the wine in just a moment, guys. So be nice and patient. We're continuing to cook the garlic. We're continuing to cook the onion. We're infusing the fat. We're infusing the oil. And now, just about as this is ready to go, we're going to go in with a nice generous, and again, I want a generous glug of white wine. And the reason why I want so much white wine is because this soup does not have a lot of strong aromatics otherwise. So guys, we're going to go back in here, and now we're going to be splashing some of the wine along the edges of the pan, and we're going to be scraping up the bottom. We want to scrape it off. We want to get anything that could be possibly stuck to the pan. You're effectively cleaning up the pan now. We're cleaning it up. We're getting it done. And now we're going to get everything nicely infused into the wine itself. And then we'll add the potatoes and some water and let it boil. Does anybody have any cooking questions for me at the moment? We're getting the wine up to a nice big boil. Okay. I'm again just scraping along the edges of the pan. I'm dissolving any of the sugars that are stuck to the edges of said pan, and make sure that they're all incorporated beautifully back into today's soup. There you go. Deglazing is incredibly therapeutic. Deglazing is lovely. And it's nice to do, by the way, deglazing with a small volume of liquid, because once you, let's say you wanted to deglaze with some stock, if you pour it in an entire quart of stock, it's going to be really difficult to see the bottom and see if you have any like stuck stuff on the bottom of the pan. The whole point of deglazing is to get things unstuck from the bottom, unstuck from the sides. So you always want to be deglazing with a small to medium amount of liquid. You want to still be able to effectively see through to the bottom of the pan or the pot that you're using. Okay? Is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef? Please and thank you. Ooh, guys, I destroyed my pinky just now. That is painful. My goodness. Okay. I'm going to just exchange the water in my potatoes one more time because that potato water can end up sometimes being too starchy. And so I'm just filling it back up, and then we'll add the potatoes directly inside with some caldo de pollo. And this pot I'm going to get back up to a boil as well. Okay. Lovely. And by the way, that just happened because I used the burner and because of some electromagnetic nonsense that does mess with cables and cameras. Okay, almost done, guys. We're just continuing to evaporate. We're continuing to deglaze. We're unsticking anything that could be potentially stuck to the bottom of this pot. Keeping it all nice and simple, nice and easy. Put tons of Neosporin on it, cover it with a glove. Later, Tarina. We'll do all that stuff later on. And again, you don't have to necessarily evaporate all of this wine right now. People say that you have to like reduce it down into a syrup. I don't think that's completely necessary. Right? I think it'll be okay. So guys, and now I'm going to be going in. First, this is all of the water that I'm going to need for today's soup. And now really, really gently, guys, I'm going to be going in with my potatoes. We really don't want to splash any of this stuff, right? So we want to go as close as possible to the pan itself. And then once we've built up a heaping pile of potatoes, in all of them, go. There you go. Jack, I will. All right, I will. Okay. So, potatoes in the water now, with the wine, with the onions, with the garlic as well. And now the goal, guys, is to get the potatoes fully and beautifully cooked through. Because we slice them so thin, after we bring this water up to a boil, it's only going to be maybe about 10 minutes of cook time, I want to say. And then we can finish it, and it's going to be lovely. I'm not going to add any additional salt because my chicken bouillon is really, really salty. And because of how salty my chicken bouillon is, I'm only going to adjust with some more salt at the end of the actual cook time, right? Because we don't really know how much salt we're adding until the end of it. So I'm doing 2 big heaping spoonfuls, maybe even 3 heaping spoonfuls, because I want this all nicely and beautifully seasoned. And now I'm just going to go ahead and mix this in. Again, if you have homemade chicken stock, that would be even better. It would be a little bit more delicate. But I think this is still going to be delicious nonetheless. Okay, and we're just mixing that in, and it's all going to dissolve beautifully. So this is just like the Knorr standard chicken bouillon that I use here. Okay, let me go ahead and have a nice little sip of water, and we'll take a little bit of a breather, and then we'll do a bit of a recap session. Is everybody paying attention? I want to hear the nice yes, chef, please and thank you. Okay, so everybody, today we're doing a potato, cheddar, spinach cream soup with some kale. That was a really, really huge mouthful. Why am I doing this actual dish today? Why is this the dish that I've chosen? Well, it's because what it actually means to cook at home is to use the kinds of things that you already have. I had some potatoes that were about to go bad. They were pretty old. They had 4 Idaho potatoes. Are Idaho potatoes my ideal choice of potato for potato soup? No, I love Yukon Gold for the soup. But the reason why I'm using Idaho potatoes is because that's what I had. I had 4 left, and I wanted to go ahead and use all of them up. And so we now have the onions that properly cooked down with a bunch of olive oil, with a bunch of butter. We got them nice and beautifully golden brown. We added in some garlic. We poured in the potatoes. We added in some water. We added some white wine. And then we added in some chicken bouillon. What's the best for making potato noodles? Tarina, I've never made potato noodles before. Okay. And so This all needs to cook now. We're bringing this up to a boil, then we're going to drop it to a simmer, and then the potatoes are going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to use an immersion blender to get it all nicely cooked down. We're going to be finishing it with kale, and then of course a heaping mound of cheddar cheese. In addition to that, we'll also be doing a really, really beautiful tomato mozzarella salad because I wanted some freshness. I wanted a nice raw vegetable component as well for today. And so we'll be doing some of the prep for that. So what else do we actually have left to do for the potato soup itself? This needs to come up to a boil. The potatoes need to soften. We need to grate a bunch of cheddar cheese for today. Then we'll be incorporating in the heavy cream. We'll be blending all of it together, and then we'll be finishing it off with the kale. So it's going to be really, really good. It's going to be really, really delicious, and I'm quite excited about it. The only thing that is kind of troubling me at the moment is this. I'm thinking maybe I should do the kale first and then the cheddar cheese. When you're typically cooking with cheese, you don't want to cook it down for a super long amount of time because it could cause the cheese to end up splitting. Even with something like this, even with a lot of starch, even with a lot of fat in the presence of the heavy cream, the cheese itself can end up splitting and you might get something that's gritty in texture. And so what I want to do is, once I get this blended up, I'm going to add in the kale, ensure that the kale is cooked, take it off the heat, and then really, really beautifully stir in a nice mound of cheddar cheese. Ducky Strange, you asked me, what are some good cheese substitutes if you're lactose intolerant? Well, here's the thing. If you're lactose intolerant, I think the first thing you have to worry about is the actual presence of the heavy cream, because we have heavy cream and spinach going into this, right? And so, I don't really know if I have a heavy cream substitute for you in that case, I'm afraid. I do apologize. Because heavy cream, I mean, it's so rich, it has so much fat, it melts in with the cheese. As for like cheese substitutes, here's the issue. A lot of lactose-free cheeses, meaning they were fermented in a certain way, that the bacteria ended up eating the lactose. They tend to be very dry, they tend to be really hard cheeses. They don't tend to be cheeses that melt well. These dry, hard cheeses, they do a really, really nice job of seasoning things, but they don't get really nice and melty. And so, I mean, you could add Parmesan into this kind of a soup, but you still need that base of milk or heavy cream so that it actually properly dissolves. So you're asking me what's like a good cheese substitute? I don't think I actually have an incredible answer for you. I apologize. I'm sorry to be so unqualified to answer that for you, Ducky. Okay, so guys, we have to do the prep for the tomatoes. We have to shred up the cheese as well. Let me go ahead and show you my spinach puree one more time. We had a couple of hiccups today. I apologize for how messy the stream is, but that's okay. Would lactose-free milk work as a heavy cream sub? I don't think lactose-free milk actually affects the meltability. So guys, this is my spinach puree. This was spinach that I initially blended down with heavy cream and a little bit of milk. And the reason we did this is because we want to go ahead and just fold this in at the end, and we'll have like this really nice, delicious, creamy, vegetable-forward soup. My one concern, though, is the fact that I think I might have overly aggressively ended up whipping the heavy cream. And the heavy cream almost turned into like these little granules. And so I think with a little bit of heat, it should melt back in and it should be okay at the end of the day. But regardless, we'll still be using an immersion blender. We'll still be breaking all of this down and we'll still get a really, really lovely, beautiful soup. So this was an entire bundle of spinach that we blended down. We blended it down beautifully. Okay, and I'm just continuing to have that chill out behind me. Once again, we're just bringing this to a boil. And then we'll just drop it down to a simmer. Ideally, I would recommend doing this with a lid, but the reason I don't have a lid is for camera reasons. So is everybody still following along? I want to hear another yes, chef, please and thank you. Let's go ahead and just make sure that all of my potatoes are nicely submerged inside. And that foam that's rising to the top, that's some of the excess starch from the potato itself, you don't have to worry about it too much. It's just going to end up happening. Okay, so let's just go ahead and give this a nice little rotation so that it is out of my way, out of my sight. Lovely. Okay, so let's go ahead and start getting some of our cheese prepped and ready to go for it today. Let's go ahead and just get that done. So today, guys, I'm going to be using a cheddar cheese because that's what I wanted to use. You could use pepper jack, you can use like a Monterey jack, you could probably even use like a mozzarella or something, but the reason why I'm using a cheddar is because I just love the sharpness of a really, really nice cheddar cheese. And so this is a plate where the cheese will be going. And then I also have here with me a really nice little box grater. So let's go ahead and get some of the cheese processed. We're not going to need an insane amount of cheese. I just want some of the cheese for the flavor, for like a little bit of sharpness, for a little bit of additional oomph. Okay. So, everybody, why do we grate cheese ourselves? Why do we not just buy a bag of pre-shredded cheddar cheese? There's a really good reason for this. First of all, in terms of actual cost efficacy and in terms of, how cheap it is, depends on the grocery store, it depends on the deals, but buying blocks of cheddar cheese and grating it yourself is typically speaking cheaper. Second of all, everybody, I want you to tap in. I want to make sure that you're all listening to this part. Pre-grated cheese has other starch powders, just as Z Madcap said. Other starch powders, it has a little bit of cellulose, it has other things added to it to stop it from clumping. We do not need those anti-clumping agents. They're there to help preserve the texture of the shredded cheese. It has all these other additional preservatives that we don't actually need in the final product. Those anti-clumping agents actually inhibit the cheese's ability to properly melt into something. So nothing, at the end of the day, beats a freshly grated thing of cheese. Now, they don't sell pre-grated cheese without these anti-clumping agents because you need it so that it's actually viable to store in a bag for an extended amount of time. Okay, so guys, I want to get all of you into the habit of grating your own blocks of cheese. You can get like a food processor attachment, right, if you don't want to do this with your hands. I think grating cheese is incredibly annoying. My arms have gotten stronger in recent time. I've been not working them out, but I've been using them more for a lot of different things. But even then, I cannot stand the process of grating cheese. I find it annoying. So if you would like, I really, really recommend, getting like a food processor or something with like a cheese grating attachment, and you'll be able to get a bunch of it done at once. So guys, we're saving money. We're avoiding all of these extra components. And what I love doing, I love keeping my box grater flat, and I'm going to show you why. So first, let's do it the classic standing method. Let's say I have to do this, right? And take a look at what happens. All of this falls onto the cutting board, and then I have to go ahead and take it and scoop it onto the plate. And then you're going ahead and you're picking up a bunch of little cheese granules all the time, and it's a bit of a headache. So what I do instead is I lay my box grater nice and flat, and I almost use it like a mandolin. I use it like a mandolin, and this way I keep all of my cheese contained, and then I dump it out onto the plate. It looks like the smallest optimization ever, but it does make your life significantly easier. So guys, I'm going to be using about a 1/4 pound of cheddar cheese. This right here is a 1/2 pound block. So we only need a 1/4 of this bad boy. Ugh. And we're grating, and we're grating, and we're getting all of it done. That's right, it's like a built-in bench scraper. So guys, it's just picking it up. It's picking it up, it's scooping, and bam. Now, you could also buy, there's like box graters out there that is basically like a grating thing over like a plastic box. Don't do that. Just get a normal grater like this, and I promise you it'll get the job done really, really easily. So we're going to want, in total, maybe like a 1/4 pound of cheddar cheese. It's hard to have too much cheese. We're going to have the starch and the heavy cream to make sure that it melts in well. Okay guys, so now that this is boiling, we want to go ahead and drop this down to a simmer. We're going to drop it down to a simmer, and then we're going to set a timer for about 10 minutes. And all we're really looking for is for the potatoes to get nice and soft enough that we can blend it into a beautiful, beautiful potato soup. Okay, and then we'll be tasting for seasoning and all these other amazing things. Well, fellow knights, I'm glad that I could help you out. That's right. So this is a deep cheese loaf. We do blocks of cheese, and this is the best way to grate it. Also, I feel like I've gotten stronger. Recently, I've started carrying a briefcase for my job as a cooking teacher. I keep all my stuff in there, and I've been using like the molcajete. I feel like my arms have gotten a lot stronger. Normally, my muscles are fairly atrophied. I am an e-girl who stays at home all day, right? Also, Fishik, thank you so much for the prime sub. Okay guys, let's go ahead and just continuing processing. We're continuing grating, we're getting it done. Also, if you feel like your cheese is like too soft and crumbly, it's typically too warm. You want to maybe just stick it into the freezer for like 10 minutes, and it'll be a lot easier to actually grate like this. Okay, so guys, this is roughly a 1/4 pound of cheddar cheese because I started from a 1/2 pound block, or like a 0.6 pound block. There we go, that's all of it right now. And now, again, we'll always have a couple of strands that do escape the cutting board nonetheless, but we'll get to that in just a second. We'll use a handy dandy little bench scraper to just get under all of this cheese and scoop it up and put it onto the cheese plate. And then all of this is going to get melted in beautifully into today's soup. So everybody, the cheese grater has done a wonderful job for us. I'm going to go ahead and actually just keep the cheese grater just in case, because I might add in the cheddar cheese and decide, hey, I actually want more. So I'm not putting it away yet. I'm not putting it into the sink quite yet, but I am going to wrap this up and put this back into the fridge. My potatoes are boiling. They're cooking beautifully. They're looking good. I have another pot of water boiling behind me in case we actually need it for something, which we might. There you go. And let's get this cheese wrapped up and back into the fridge. And I'm also going to just take a second to clean up my station a little bit. Okay, because I have a lot of bowls, I have a lot of stuff laying around at the moment. Okay, and I just want to clean up as I go. And that's what it means to cook at home. You have to clean as you go. Otherwise, you're just going to be left with a really huge mess at the end of it all. And I'm sure that's not what you would like. So I'm just taking this bowl and I'm throwing it into the dishwasher. Beautiful. This is my new waste bowl now. Excellent. And I'll also get rid of this big metal bowl and throw this bad boy into the dishwasher as well. So let's head back to the potatoes. My 2 stages of cooking tomato tip is life-changing. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that I could help out. We're not going to be doing anything crazy like that today. We'll see what I feel, how I feel about the heirloom tomatoes. So guys, take a look. The potato soup is bubbling. It's boiling away. Typically I say you don't want to overcook the potatoes. You don't want them to fall apart. We're kind of looking for them to fall apart today because that's how we get a potato soup after all at the end of the day. Okay. So all that we're going to do, guys, is just go in there, mix it up a little bit. And in total, this might only take 7 minutes. It depends on the potato. It depends on the kind of potato. The smaller that you cut it, the easier it does actually end up cooking. All that we're really looking to do is to get this broth infused with the wine, right, that we're building. We're looking to get it infused with the wine. We're looking to get it infused with the onions. And already, it does look pretty beautiful. Right? Really, really simple, guys. We don't have a lot of strong flavors today. We don't have a lot of really crazy stuff going on or anything. We're keeping it really, really simple. But simple can also just mean delicious. Because all I was looking for was a very nice, delicate, slightly sweet, creamy, very vegetable-forward soup. Okay, so Jack, you asked me, what is my take on fitness diets like low-carb and low-fat? Okay, I'll go on a rant. You guys ready for a rant? I want to hear a nice yes, chef, if you're ready. Because I have a lot of thoughts, I have a lot of opinions, I have a lot of feelings on the matter that actually come from quite an educated place. So, here's my rant. In fact, maybe not a fitness diet, but I'm going to rant about the ketogenic diet really quickly. So, who here knows about the Atkins diet, the keto diet, low-carb diets, that kind of a thing? For a very long time, carbohydrates are, sort of the culprit behind people saying, oh, I'm, gaining a bunch of weight. I'm doing all these different things. Okay, so let me start this off by talking about the keto diet, who it was meant for, and why this actually just kind of became a problem. The keto diet's not necessarily a automorphy, but we're going to get into that in just a second. So, the ketogenic diet is innately based off of the idea of what? You're looking to deprive your body of glucose, and the way that your body actually gets elevated blood sugar is by eating carbohydrates and sugars. And so a ketogenic diet is supposed to be a high-fat diet and low to non-existent carbs and moderate amounts of protein, but it's a mostly high-fat diet. This diet, I believe it was originally developed for people with epilepsy. It was originally developed for people with epilepsy, and there's, I'm not necessarily an expert on that specific implementation, but apparently it reduces seizures, right, for, a good chunk of the population. There was somebody in my high school who had that prescribed to her as a doctor. Okay, so here's the problem. A lot of people look at the keto diet and they say, no carbohydrates. That means I need to eat a lot of protein. And so you see all of these people on the internet, all of these, middle-aged Americans that are showing you all these cooking videos for, cheese bombs and 30 different pounds of bacon. And the biggest issue that they end up doing is they're eating so much protein. They eat so much protein that your body undergoes a very separate process called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is when you eat so much protein that your body literally takes protein and turns it into glucose. It turns it into blood sugar for you. And so you have all of these people who think and they're preaching that like, oh, no carbohydrates, I can eat as much protein as you want. And they have elevated blood sugar as a result. And so a ketogenic diet, it has its own actual medical implementation, right? It has its own place. for people, right? But then, because people like sort of looked at it and were like, hey, wait a second, this is a diet that lowers your blood sugar and thus it will simultaneously lower your insulin, it got so severely misappropriated by the layman that did not have this diet actually prescribed to them that they started undergoing a much more dangerous diet. This idea of a carnivore diet, this idea of a meat-forward diet like that, as high protein as it may be, because of how little carbohydrates you're eating, your body is literally taking that protein and turning it into sugar. So, here's my problem. A lot of these low-carb diets come from the fact that people want to eat a lot of volume. Also, hi, POV. It's lovely to see you. It comes from the fact that people want to eat a lot of volume. And so what I do whenever I want to lose a little bit of weight, which is I just reduce the amount of carbohydrate intake that I actually have, and I just make sure to have a nice balanced diet with a bunch of other things, right? Because everything in moderation is fine at the end of the day. And if you're doing a no carbohydrate diet, you have to be doing a very high fat diet to make sure that your body is not actively undergoing gluconeogenesis. Okay? So that's my take. That is my take. That is, you know, not even just like my take. That is my very well-studied opinion on the matter on these types of diets. They get very severely misinterpreted by people that think, also Tarina, thank you so much for the gifted sub. They get very misinterpreted by people that think they need to be absolutely protein maxing at all times, and they're doing things that are somewhat dangerous to them in their body. You can eat a lot of protein, it just has to be in the context of other things as well. Typically diets that say, oh, you're completely cutting out this thing, they have consequences. Okay. J-Buck, if you go Neogenesis, do you get your own mobile suit? I do believe so. Yeah, it's part of the program. Okay. So, that was my rant. I know I kind of went off topic a little bit. I just wanted to talk about my distaste for the layman's interpretation of a ketogenic diet, because there's so many influencers on TikTok, all of these, I'm going to say it, all of these white people, you know, myself included perhaps, that are between the ages of 40 and 50, that these are the kinds of things that they're preaching, and they're harming people. They say, oh, this is the easiest way to lose weight, just cut out all carbohydrates and sugars. Ugh. It's obnoxious. It's really annoying. And so a ketogenic diet, if done properly, can also result in like you losing body fat, right? Because you have much lower insulin levels. It just so happens that everybody who says that they're on a keto diet, they eat way too much protein to actually be on it properly. So they're not actually in the state of ketosis. They're not actually producing ketones or anything. So that's my very long extended rant on the subject matter. People don't really know what they're doing. They're not consulting actual nutritionists, and they're doing more harm. And because they're influencers, they're actively harming and endangering other people too. So there you go. Also, hi, Stasus. It's lovely to have you. Welcome on in. Okay guys, my potatoes are almost done cooking. The only thing that we really need to test for is, are they going to be tender enough that a fork is going to go through them? Will they be able to blend up beautifully? And if not, we can go ahead and continue to cook them. You can't really overcook the potatoes for a potato soup like this, guys. Okay? You really can't, right? I'm sure you theoretically can, but all you're looking for is just the potatoes to be nice and soft enough. So, everybody, let's do a bit of a recap session. I'm going to take the timer and put it back for another 5 minutes or so. Let's do a bit of a recap session. We're doing a potato spinach kale soup. I sauteed some onions and garlic in a bunch of butter and olive oil. I deglazed it with a big old hit of white wine. I added in some sliced Idaho potatoes, because everything about this cooking show is supposed to be to teach you what it means to cook at home. And at home, I had these potatoes that were going bad. I had some old onions and I wanted to use them up. Potatoes, I actually think, can be a bit of a challenge to cook with at home. And the reason why is because they're really wet. You're not typically deep frying at home. And whenever you have leftover potatoes, they do not reheat well. A roasted potato, any kind of crispy potato, any kind of brown potato, they will always be a little bit stale the next day. The beauty of a potato soup at home is that you're making the potato into something that is reheatable. It is easily reheatable, and it will essentially be just as good the next day. That is the beauty of doing a potato soup. Is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef? Please and thank you. Okay, and so we're just looking to soften up. We're gonna blend them up. We're gonna add in, we have an entire thing of spinach, guys. This was an entire bundle of spinach that we blended down with some heavy cream and milk. We're going to add that in. We have some shredded kale that we're also going to add. We're going to blend the whole thing up beautifully, and we're going to have the super green, super delicious soup. My inspiration for this was almost from a caldo verde, although not really, because it doesn't actually have the sausage, but a caldo verde is a Portuguese potato kale soup. right? And so that is some of my inspiration, and I basically turned it into my own with the presence of cream and cheese, and I just wanted a really rich soup. The other thing that we're going to be making, which we're going to get a start on now, is this really delicious heirloom tomato mozzarella salad. We're going to slice up the tomatoes, we're going to see how sweet they are, we're going to decide if we want to strain out any of the liquid from them. We're going to cut up a bunch of fresh herbs, because I have a bunch of dill and cilantro that I want to get rid of. I use Edits, Starsus, thank you for asking. Okay. So, continuing to break them up, guys. The potatoes are now basically just getting tender enough that they will be able to blend up beautifully. I do want to taste the stock. I do want to taste the stock that we've ended up building up because I'm tasting for salinity now. And it's going to get more bland because we're going to add in more bland components, and then we'll be finishing it off with the cheese. So I'm not going to add in more salt until after I'm done with adding the cheese itself. Okay? So let me go ahead and have a nice big taste. Oh. That is actually pretty delicious. So it tastes nice and seasoned now, but here's the thing that you need to remember. The inner part of the potato itself is bland. The kale is bland. The spinach and the heavy cream is bland. The cheddar is salty. Do not adjust for seasoning now. We're going to be taking away salt by adding in more bland components, and then we'll be adding more salt in towards the end. Is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef, from everybody watching? Please and thank you. I want to make sure that all of you understand, that all of you are listening. Everybody, we're going to set up my blending station for this, okay? So I'm going to be using an immersion blender. I highly, highly recommend everybody to invest into an immersion blender. An immersion blender does an incredible job of taking care of such things. Because we don't have to pour this off into a separate vessel or anything, guys. We can just go ahead and blend directly in the pot itself. I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of space for us right now, just by moving this away. I think everybody should invest into a nice immersion blender. It'll make your life a lot easier. Right? A lot of cream soups, there's so much potential that could actually be had. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unplug my other blender, and we can go ahead and now take this off the heat. The only thing I'm ensuring to do, can I break apart each potato easily? And the answer is yes, I can. We have no raw, uncooked potato chunks left over. So guys, whenever I'm blending, I always make sure I have a separate little stand where I can then detach the actual blender head itself. Oh, look how beautiful that looks, guys. And now, let's just get just the still of the stove. We're just gonna look at the stove, okay? Look at it together. And I'm gonna go ahead and plug in my lovely little blender. And let's go ahead and tighten it up. And now, guys, we're always starting off on a low speed. So let's talk about blender safety really quickly. Look at this line on the blender. You see this line? That is the water level that you need to hit. If you don't hit that water level, well, we don't actually completely hit it either, but we really want to make sure that it's the holes are at least covered. If you don't hit that water level, what's going to happen is it's going to splash a little bit. I'm okay with it splashing. I'm accepting the consequences. But you typically want enough volume in there, but at the very least, you need at least the holes covered, otherwise it will splash. We start off on a low speed because all we're looking to do is just to break up the greater potato chunks. If we started off on a high speed, it can really, really easily splash. So is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef? We start on a low speed, and then we'll make it to a high speed. Start on a low speed. I know it doesn't look great yet. It will get there. We will get there, I promise. So I'm just going through. I'm analyzing every single potato chunk. I'm deciding, okay, buddy, it's time for you to get blended. Right? All the big, big, big chunks of potato. And then we're going to go in on the high speed and get all of it beautifully incorporated. So you can see we still have the big chunk of potato, We're turning it all effectively into this incredible super seasoned mashed potato now. Right, and this, guys, this is going to be a beautiful soup. And now that we've went ahead and we've processed every single last one of those big pieces, guys, we're going to now go in with a high speed, and we're going to blend it, and we're going to break down the potatoes and break down the onions, and we're going to have them all combined together as one, into one beautiful soup. And this is still without the spinach. This is still without the kale. And the soup looks a little bit thick. We can always adjust it with some more water later on. Now, guys, this is the beauty of a really, really nice and easy potato soup. It's all coming together, but we're not done. This thing is going to turn so vivid and so green. I just want to go ahead and get all of my chunks of onion processed. I want to get all of my chunks of potato processed. Everything nicely blended. And it's going to taste a little bit bland. Don't worry, guys. We still have the cheese to add in. Okay, so don't you worry for even a second. So let's get all of this stuff nicely and beautifully blended. Guys, doesn't that look nice? Doesn't that look good? All of it. All of it. And if you think that you've blended it enough, you haven't, because we still have little chunks in there. Theoretically, you could pass this through a fine mesh sieve to get it super, super smooth. I don't recommend doing that. And the reason I don't recommend doing that is because you're cooking at home. You know how much effort it is to take another equally sized pot? I'm going to talk to you right now. I'm going to talk at you for a second. Do you understand how much effort it is to take another equally sized pot, to get that dirty with your potato soup, and then to also get a strainer dirty with the puree that you then have to go at it with a brush and then just to clean off all the little chunks? You're cooking at home. It's okay for your potato soup to have a couple of really, really teeny tiny, bits in it. Okay? It's okay, it's fine. You will be okay. I promise you, you're not going to die. So if you really want to, and you're looking to impress, let's say you have a beautiful woman over with the silkiest potato soup she's ever had, go ahead, be my guest, put this through a strainer. I have nobody to impress at the moment. And I'm also cooking for myself. That's not for me to say that you shouldn't do nice things for yourself. What I'm saying is, it is completely impractical to dirty another pot, to dirty an entirely other strainer, okay, just for the sake of getting a slightly smoother soup. Okay, John Dolly asks, Chef, can you talk about how we keep the starches from turning the soup into a glue consistency? Yeah, you don't over mix it, but I like the gluey consistency. I like it, so I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, typically for mashed potatoes, you're looking to just mix it with liquid as little as possible, right? Very gently. Okay, so yeah. Exactly, and what I'm trying to teach all of you how to do is I'm trying to teach you how to cook at home. Before, I used to strain it through the camera, and I've realized, what the hell am I doing with my time? Okay? What am I doing? I don't want to go ahead and clean off another pot. So for me, I love putting in a lot of effort in what I consider necessary places. I don't consider straining it as completely necessary. So guys, look at this. All of the vegetables, everything is now getting beautifully combined into one gorgeous soup. We're getting rid of all the chunks, all the little teeny tiny bits, because again, we're looking for a very nice smooth viscosity here. But guys, it's a soup. At the end of the day, it's a soup, okay? It's all about your intention. Ooh, I lifted it up too much. At the end of the day, it's all about your intentions. If your intention is to have something that is completely silky, then you'll go ahead and press it through a sieve, okay? Then you'll go ahead and do that. But for somebody who is working, right? Because what I want to teach you, I want to teach you dishes and food that you can, eat throughout the week, that you can then reheat and take to work. I'm planning on taking this to work with me tomorrow in a thermos. In order to do that, you need to understand how much effort you're willing to put into something and the trade-offs that you get. And so for me, I'm okay with a slightly less smooth, silky consistency if it means that I don't have to spend another 10 minutes washing dishes. So we're blending it, we're getting it done. And again, we're going to just go ahead and detach this. And this is why it's very nice to have that separate blender cup, or this blender plate, ready to go. And now guys, we're going to go in with my beautiful spinach cream mixture. And we're going to try to blend this in as well now. So it's going to get even thicker, it's going to get even more viscous, everybody. Let's get every last bit of it. We don't want to waste any of this lovely spinach that we have here. Let's get all of it inside of the soup. Okay? All of it in. All of it goes in now. There we go. As always, by the way, if you haven't already done so, please check out my Patreon. You can type in !Patreon. You can, okay, that doesn't look great. We're going to blend it in. It's going to be great. You can check out my Patreon if you'd like to support what we do. I'd love to be able to do this full time, to teach people how to cook at home. So guys, all I'm going to do now, I'm going to be blending in my spinach really, really beautifully, really simply. And now this whole soup turns, like a really deep, deep green. We blanch the spinach, we mix it with the milk, we mixed it with the cream. And now we're getting all of this combined. This isn't, the green is nice. This is a very odd color. I apologize for the color that we're kind of getting from this. It's a little, it's kind of sludge-like. But it's full of greens. It has so much flavor at this stage. I do want to give it a little taste just to see where it's at. Oh my God. Guys, That is delicious. That is so good. Oh my goodness. Let's keep it going though. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's get all of it nicely blended. We have to pick it up occasionally. And we're going to be adding in the cheese last. We're going to add in the cheese after the kale itself. And the reason why I want to do the cheese last is because we don't want to overcook the cheese. Okay? We don't want to overcook the cheese. The cheese could end up splitting. We'll get a very unpleasant texture that way. So let's go ahead. Well, actually, I could theoretically just blend in a separate portion of this. Is this going to be on the YouTube channel? Absolutely. All of my VODs get uploaded onto the YouTube. Every single last one. Also, check out the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. Exclamation mark YouTube. That's just where I put like all the VODs. I don't edit them or anything. I just put them on as they are. Okay, guys. That is now nicely and beautifully blended, all combined together. We might blend it some more if we need it at the end. I think what I'm actually going to do is I am going to take a ladle of this or a couple of ladles of this, and I might separate it. No. I said that. I've already decided against it. Okay, so the heat of the soup will unwhip the cream. I don't think so, G-Spent Gaming. And the reason why I don't think so is because we have the starch in there from the potato itself. The starch in there from the potato is going to be a really nice stabilizer. If we did not have all of that potato starch, then that would have ended up unwhipping. So we're going to take this and put it back onto the heat. I apologize for the camera flash for a second. And now I'm going to just go in with my kale. And the kale, it's not going to take any time at all. I just want my kale to soften up beautifully, okay? That's the entire function, that is the entire purpose of all of this kale. And let's get all of it submerged. And it's going to be this really, really amazing vessel in actually picking up the soup itself. And the kale is going to soften, and it's going to be great. But yes, the actual starch of the potato itself, G-Spent, I'm fairly confident that it will protect it. And we're not going to be aggressively boiling this or anything either. We're just going to be heating it back on up. Okay, so we're just adding it on in. We're getting it in there. Because starches are typically stabilizers with emulsions, right? I know this looks really thick and rich, and this is still without the cheese. It's going to be even thicker. It's going to be even richer. And that's what I'm looking for, G-Spent. I am looking for like a thick, hearty soup. And it has a lot of vegetables inside. It has an entire head of spinach. Okay, so chef, why blend the potatoes and then the spinach, and why not all together? So, the reason I wanted to do it is because the spinach is already blended, and I wanted to ensure that I got all the chunks of potato done first. If we have more volume, it's a little bit more difficult to make sure that we get all the chunks of potato done and out of the way. Does that make sense? Because we have less to work with, it'll be easier to get it evenly blended when I already know that the spinach was blended. And the reason why I blended it in again was just to make sure, that it's all like nicely combined. So guys, the kale, it needs to cook for maybe a total of like 10 minutes or so. Right? And it's going to be a little bit slower because it's not going to be boiling water or anything, right? It's just going to be in this pot. We're scraping it up, we're stirring often. Right? Beautiful. Well, maybe not beautiful. This is quite an interesting color. But it has a lot of vegetables inside of it. We shoved in an entire bundle of spinach. And so that's what this was for me. This was an exercise in how much nutritional value can I actually pack into something. I happen to quite enjoy when things are like this green and like this deep, right? So again, nice low medium heat, because we're not looking to dry out the soup on the edges. We're not looking to char it on the bottom. We're not looking to boil it so aggressively that it splits or anything. Let's just go ahead and give this a little taste. That is so simple, and then it's so good. So simple, so delicious. While that's doing its thing, let's go ahead and address the tomato salad situation. So again, we don't want to ever have this boil too much. It's going to start splashing up and up all over the place. So everybody, I'm going to also go ahead and just submerge my blender cup. Really nice and quick. I have here some really, really gorgeous heirloom tomatoes. Oh, Jack, thank you. That's so sweet. Okay. I have some really gorgeous heirloom tomatoes here, guys. And all that we're going to do is we're going to cut it up fairly heterogeneously. When we have these kinds of really, really beautiful tomatoes, I don't want to be like chopping them all into like the same size pieces or anything. I just want to give them a lot of love and really, really respect their different textures and their different tastes. Okay. I'm just continuing to stir, especially around the edges, just to make sure that none of it sticks, that none of it dries. So let's go ahead and start thinking about these tomatoes, guys. So the only things I really want to do with them, I want to cut out like the bottom, and I also want to be cutting it in a way that I can go ahead and take that out. Okay, so let's think about all the different ways that we could possibly cut this guy up. So we're going to just start by, I'm just going to very gently trim off this bottom portion because it's a little unpleasant to eat, like that dried off skin. And we're going to just go, I'm going to cut the yellow one, this orange one, into wedges. But the first thing I'm going to do, guys, is now that I've cut it in half, I can easily make an incision and cut out the core of the tomato itself with my paring knife, okay? I go in there and I cut out the core. Beautiful. That's one, and that's two. And now I'm just going to take this tomato and I think I just want to cut this one into wedges. Something like this. Really, really beautiful. And I'm not going to season these until the end. Typically, I pre-salt my tomatoes, but I want to keep a lot of the texture of these tomatoes. And because I want to keep the texture, I'm not going to salt them until just when we're ready to eat them. Otherwise, they're just going to get really, really wet. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these tomatoes and I'm just going to start putting it onto the plate. This is not going to be the kind of a salad that gets mixed. Also, hi Sid, welcome on in. Hope you're having a beautiful day today. Yeah, the salad's not going to get mixed at all, guys. I'm just taking these big old chunks of tomato and I'm putting it onto this plate. Beautiful. I do have to go back and stir my soup, again, because it's a cream soup, because it's a potato soup. It has all that stuff on the bottom that can easily burn that we don't want it to. And then we don't want it to like boil too much because then it's just going to start splashing all over the place. And it's going to make a huge mess. So I'm going back in and I'm just scraping along the sides, guys. I'm scraping especially along the bottom, nice, big, confident grip. Okay, and we're just cooking the kale down until the kale is nice and soft. Nice. Okay. So let's go ahead and proceed with my second tomato now. This is my red tomato. Okay. And so this guy, I don't even know how I'm going to begin tackling him. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make an incision here and an incision here, just again so I can cut off like this dried off bottom piece. This is a massive tomato, guys. Huge. Okay, how do I attack this thing? Because I want to cut him up a little bit differently than I did the other ones. Right? Maybe I just sort of, let's say, I don't know. I'm actively thinking about this. I started talking and I realized I didn't know what I wanted to say. Just continuing to stir up my soup while I think about what I want to do with this little tomato. And as you can see, the soup is not splitting, as we were afraid of, because again, of the potato starch. How do we even go about slicing this guy? How do we do this tomato? This is a monstrosity of a tomato, absolutely right. Here's what I think we should do. I think we should cut off a little wedge like this. Cut out the core. Okay, and now let me see if I can get some nice, big, thick tomato slices like this. Could I do something like this to really show it off? Well, probably a bigger knife would have been ideal. And we're not going to use all of this tomato, but I'm just using this paring knife just so that I can get like a lot of maneuverability. I can really get in there. Although, I kind of destroyed that tomato. Yeah, these tomatoes, not amazing, not the sweetest or anything, but that's okay. Yeah, probably not the best way to cut it, actually. There might have been a much more picturesque way to do so. So that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and just cut this into slightly smaller pieces, just so that it's nice and edible for my salad. And the rest of this I'm not going to use because that is quite frankly too much. And we still have another tomato that I wanted to use. Okay. How is my kale soup doing? Oh, beautiful. Looking good, just needs a couple more minutes just to get that kale nicely and fully and beautifully softened. Okay, let's go ahead and also take these pieces off and just start scattering them around my plate. Not the most beautiful cuts. I could have gone like the other way to have gotten, to have like really, really made sure that like I could really show off the inside of the tomato, but that's okay. Just tucking them in. Very nice. Okay, and then we have one more tomato to go through. And again, I'm only just going to use half of it because we have so much tomato. stirring up my soup again. Does anybody have any cooking questions for me, guys? We're in the final stage. We just have to finish up with this salad. Where have I been? I've been here the whole time. Yeah, welcome. Okay, guys, so this bad boy right here, I think I'm going to do big slices like this. And again, I'm doing it this way because I want to really, really show off the inside beauty of this tomato, right? I want to just show off that really, really gorgeous innard. And thus, I'm slicing it like so. Everybody still tuning in? Everybody still enjoying the show? I want to hear a nice resounding yes, chef, from everybody watching. Please and thank you. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and just cut this up into halves, just so it's a little bit easier for our consumption later on. And I'll set that away. And let's go ahead and get the rest of these tomatoes onto my lovely little plate. And again, we're only going to season it just before we're ready to eat, because if we season this in advance, it's going to start leaching out a bunch of liquid. So those are all of my tomatoes. Oh God, what'd you ask me? What would I substitute for somebody who can't have tomatoes? Would a bell pepper salad work? I mean, yeah, but there is no like substitution for tomatoes. At the end of the day, you can just make a different salad. Fine black ink. You can just do a completely different salad, and that's okay too. Because nothing at the end of the day will be exactly quite like a tomato. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and stir this through one last time. I think that is now officially done cooking. Okay, and now it's still going to be a little bit undersalted. And the reason it's going to be undersalted is because we need to add in the cheddar cheese into this. So it's going to get even thicker, it's going to get even richer. That is delicious. Oh my goodness. Whoa. That is so simple, that is so good. And guys, we're going to do a little mound of cheddar at a time and add it in. So this soup, it's barely a soup at this point, right? It has so much width, it has like so much viscosity, so much thickness. We take the cheese and we melt it in. We stir it off the heat, because if you boil this, the cheese can easily split and become gritty. So we're stirring this nice and aggressively. And the cheese, even it might look like it's fully melted, it's not quite yet, guys. It needs a lot of stirring to actually get there. So keep on stirring. Keep on stirring, keep on stirring. I promise you, you cannot over stir the cheese, but you can definitely under stir it. But yeah, like a bell pepper salad is like a substitute for the tomatoes would be fine. Just use whatever raw produce looks the nicest, right? Okay guys, we're continuing to just mix in all of this really, really beautiful cheese. We're getting it in there. It's thick, it's rich, it's creamy. It's exactly what I'm looking for. Nice. Okay. And keep mixing it and keep mixing it and keep mixing it. Let's do the next batch going inside. It's getting even thicker, guys. It's getting even richer. It's becoming really, really special. All the cheese, all of it in. Beautiful. Guys, I don't think you can complain about this too much. Can we do an early review of it, at least before the final tasting? Absolutely. We'll be tasting it for salinity, because after we add the cheese, we might need to adjust it for salt, right? This is a ridiculously thick soup. Yeah, this is more of a sauce, right? This is more of a puree than a soup, which I'm totally okay with. I have absolutely no qualms about it. If you'd like it runny, thin it out with some milk. You could probably thin it out with water and be fine. But for me, this is the texture that I wanted. I wanted something this rich. I wanted something this thick, something this viscous, this flavorful. It has so many vegetables inside, guys, that you have absolutely no idea. And we're stirring it up, and we're getting rid of any possible pockets of cheese. The cheese loves sticking to the edges as well, so just making sure that you're cleaning all of it up. There you go. That is now a really beautiful looking soup. All the cheese now mixed in. Let's go ahead and have a little taste. That is so good. Guys, that is perfect. It has so many vegetables. It has so much richness. It has so much sweetness. That is lovely. The only thing that it's missing for me is a little bit of salinity. So one big, maybe two big pinches of salt. And now we have to thoroughly mix this in, because especially with such a thick soup, you can easily get pockets of salt. And we don't want pockets of salt. We want the salt to be evenly dispersed in. So make sure you're dragging along the edges. You're pushing up along the sides. You're mixing everything in, guys. Every single last drop of it has to go inside. Is that clear? Can I please get a yes, chef? Please and thank you. Okay. And there we go. And dragging it along and getting all that salt dissolved again, because you will get pockets of salt when you have something this thick. Okay. That looks pretty good for me now. Let's go ahead and have a little taste. I burnt my hand again. That's perfect. Guys, that is so good. That is perfect. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And now we're just going to go ahead and let that chill out, and that's exactly what we'll be eating in just a little bit. Guys, let's go ahead and finish up everything that we need for today's tomato salad. So my tomatoes have now all been beautifully prepped. Let's go ahead and just wipe this off. And now, guys, let's do some of my herbs. The reason I'm doing this tomato salad today is because I wanted an excuse to get rid of a bunch of fresh herbs that I have. So I have some cilantro, right? And then I also have some dill. So it's inspired by a caprese, but it's not a caprese, considering that we are lacking, of course, basil. But instead I have cilantro, and of course, I have some lovely fresh dill as well. There we go. And so we're just gonna take these off the stems and slice them up really, really beautifully and scatter them atop the salad. And then we'll be doing the mozzarella, and then we'll plate and season it. It's gonna be great. You guys excited? I wanna hear a nice yes, chef. Please and thank you. So that's my herbs. I'm just putting the rest of my herbs away into the fridge. Okay. And now, guys, we're just going to go ahead and pluck off the stems because I don't love the texture of the stems, especially in a raw format. I don't find them very desirable. Okay, so we're plucking off all the stems. We're getting rid of them, and then we're tossing the stems aside into my waste bowl. There you go. Okay, just getting all of it done, getting all of it processed. It's a little too fibrous. It's a little, the texture isn't amazing for something like this. And now, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the dill. We're going to do these separately. We're going to slice them separately. We're going to take it and we're going to bundle it up in our hands. We're going to bundle it up beautifully and we're going to slice it. We're going to slice it gently, not chop it. We're not crushing it. We're slicing. We're using the full length of a knife. We're holding it down nice and tight and slicing it nicely and beautifully and thinly. We're using minimal vertical force, guys. No chopping allowed whatsoever. We're not looking to crush these herbs. We're looking to respect them, treat them delicately. Okay? And then we're going to give them a quarter turn and give them one more little pass through. Just this time, just to make sure that there's no unprocessed pieces. And now I'm going to take all of this dill and just start scattering it really, really nicely over all of my tomatoes. Okay? Just like that. And I'm going to save some for the soup portion itself. Okay, and I want plenty of dill. I want a very, very herbaceous salad, a very herb-forward salad. Okay? And we'll also layer some in. I did not say the baby birch feel quite yet. We're gonna do that with the cilantro. Same exact idea, guys. I'm taking the cilantro, I'm plucking it off the stems. Again, this salad at the moment is unseasoned, I do know, but we'll get to it in just a second, I promise. We do this in stages, okay? We did not olive oil it quite yet. We will, I promise. Okay. So, there you go. That's my cilantro leaves. Ready to go. I'm going to just go ahead and set this dill aside. Guys, we're going to take all the cilantro. We're going to take it and we're going to bundle it up in our hands. We're going to roll it up and we're not going to squeeze it so tightly that we crush it. We're not going to squeeze it so gently that it flies out of our hands. Like a little baby bird. Nice and gentle but firm. And now, nice thin slices. Hold it down nice and gently. There you go. Perfect. And we're going to give that a little quarter turn and just go through it a couple more times. Slice it. Do not chop it. Do not crush it under any circumstances. And now let's go ahead and take the cilantro and from nice and high up just to make sure that it's all beautifully scattered all over the tomatoes. This is going to be an incredibly herbaceous salad today. So now we salt it. Then we're going to olive oil it, and then we do the mozzarella, and then another heaping bit of olive oil. We want to first salt this layer of the tomatoes themselves, guys. And we salt this just before we're ready to eat and finish plating. Generously. Generous. If you have flaky salt, that's also really, really nice here. But we're salting up these tomatoes really beautifully, nice and generously. And then we're going to be flooding it with some olive oil. We take it and we go in. Oh, how much olive oil do I even have? Not that much. Okay, that's okay. We take it and we just douse it. We douse it all in a bunch of olive oil. And then we're going to have some more on top as well. Let's go ahead and do some of the mozzarella now. I've just had my mozzarella sitting and chilling in my fridge until this very moment, until we're ready to use it. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and open up the mozzarella. And the mozzarella, I'm just going to cut it up into some chunks. Oh, why did the bag break? That's pretty obnoxious. So again, I'm just moving all of my herbs over to the side because we're still going to need those in a little bit. And my mozzarella, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I'm not going to use all of this. I might be only going to use like half of it. Okay. And I take the mozzarella, guys, and I'm just going to go ahead and just chunk it up. You don't have to be perfect. This is just a ball of fresh mozzarella. Please don't use low moisture. You can tear it up in your hands alternatively. It does not really matter. We're just chunking it up in a bunch of different little pieces, and we're scattering it alongside the tomatoes. Right, big pieces, small pieces, does not matter. Because for this salad, we're embracing all the different little textures that we have. Do I like buffalo mozzarella? I love buffalo mozzarella. Just expensive. Right. Okay. And a couple more pieces, and that should be, for me, at least, enough cheese for that quantity. A couple more chunks. Should be okay. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and just put this into a separate little plastic bag and just throw this back into my fridge, just so that this doesn't go bad. Okay. Tasty. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to take the mozzarella and throw this bad boy into the fridge. So I apologize for the delay. So let's go ahead and get some of the herbs. Okay, there we go. And now let's go ahead and get some more of this just scattered up on top. And let's go ahead and drench this now with the rest of this olive oil. So just go in, guys, and cover it. And cover it. There we go. Now it's finally pouring out. I don't have any olive oil left in this bottle at this point, but that is now my salad. Ready to go, ready for service. And this is the kind of a thing that you want to eat fairly immediately. If you wanted to store this ahead of time, you would need to pre-season the tomatoes. This salad is just ready to go. And my soup is also ready for plating. So everybody, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick little second. I'm going to just wipe off my knife because it is full of herbs at the moment. I just want to wipe it off, and then we will plate, and we'll be ready to go. You guys ready for this? I want to hear a nice yes, chef, please and thank you. Also, for those of you that haven't already done so, once again, please check out my Patreon, !Patreon, if you'd like to support what we do here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get ourselves a nice little plate, a nice little bowl of each. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my trusty little cutting board. It still has the herbs on it, I haven't forgotten about it. I'm going to take my paper towel, wipe down my station. Chef, how put soup on plate? Silently. But don't worry, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So guys, I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab a ladle, and I'm going to give myself a nice portion of this lovely soup today. There you go. Super thick, super rich, incredibly viscous, beautiful. Exactly what I was looking for out of it. Nice. Okay? That is my soup, aggressively green. Okay? And now, we're going to go ahead and get some more of these fresh herbs just directly on top because I have them. There you go. That's one. And now, let's go ahead and get some of this salad on as well. Let's grab a fork, grab a spoon, and then we'll walk through and do a little bit of a recap of everything that we have accomplished for ourselves today. So this is gonna go into the bowl, and then as for how you actually scoop, a serving spoon would be ideal. I'm just gonna be using my fork and my hand to help me tear into all of this. And I think that is enough tomato salad for me. Let's get these mozzarella pieces though. Lovely. And I'm gonna go ahead and set this behind me, just so that it is out of sight, out of mind for a little bit. And everybody, guess what? We have done it all. We have done everything that we have set out to achieve for today. And let's go ahead and do one last recap session, and then we're going to dig into everything. So everybody, the goal of today, I started from some humble, leftover, not so amazing potatoes. We took these potatoes, we peeled them, and we trimmed them up really good. I had 4 Idaho potatoes. I sauteed a bunch of onion in butter, in olive oil. I then took those onions, I added some garlic to it. We added some white wine, we added in the potatoes, a bunch of water, we added in some chicken bouillon, okay? And we let that cook until the potatoes got nice and soft. We blanched a ridiculous amount of spinach, and we blended it with some heavy cream and with some milk. We then added that to the potatoes, blended it all together, and then we cooked a bunch of kale inside as well. And then we let it cook for 10 minutes, and we finished it off with a bunch of freshly grated cheddar cheese, not the bagged stuff, from a block of cheese. And we are left with this incredibly herbaceous, super thick, rich, but vegetable-forward soup. There is an entire bundle of spinach in this pot of soup, and there is a bunch of kale as well. It is healthy, it is rich, it is a meal in of itself. But to go alongside it, we have this lovely heirloom tomato salad. Tomatoes, we cut them up. We had some yellow tomatoes, some brown tomatoes, some red tomatoes. We tossed it with some salt. We doused it in olive oil. We added some mozzarella. We added some cilantro and dill because I had some of it to get rid of as well. Everybody, this is my food. Let's go ahead and have a taste. Let's go ahead and have a little bite of the tomato with some of the mozzarella. That is so pleasant. That is perfect. That's just great. That was just lovely. It was inspired by a caprese, except I didn't have basil. I had all these other herbs. So I went ahead and I used them, and I got this incredibly delicious salad out of it. Nice and rich, beautifully sweet, nicely seasoned. That's good. And now, let's go ahead and have some of the soup. Well, to call it a soup would be pretty hilarious considering it's almost like a complete puree, but let's just, oh my goodness. Oh, the kale, the bite of kale, amazing. That is pretty remarkable. That is lovely. That is so comforting. That is so rich. And it's so healthy too. This has so many vegetables in it. An entire head of spinach, a bunch of kale in as well, and we still did not skimp out on the cheese or the cream. It's rich and it's delicious. It's really, really beautiful. Somewhere between soup and mashed potatoes, that's right. I love doing creamed potato soups because it's one of the best ways to get potatoes to store in the fridge. Typically, reheating potatoes is a nightmare. They get stale, they're not very pleasant, but this transformation of the potatoes in a pureed form, especially in a soup form like this. So good. Amazing. So you can absolutely use fennel fronds. It'll just make it taste nice and licorice-y. I love using fennel fronds like an herb. And guys, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy this dinner. Everybody, thank you all for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. Remember, we're live 3 times a week, every Wednesday, every Friday, every Sunday, 5 p.m. EDT. Thank you all. I appreciate every single one of you. For those of you that haven't done so, please check out my Patreon. You can type in !Patreon in the chat where you can scroll down. I'm looking to be able to do this full time one day, and so any and all help would be really, really appreciated. Thank you all for being here. Friday, 2 days from now, I already know what we're doing. We're going to be doing some drop biscuits and a couple other things. It's going to be really delicious. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your Wednesday night. I got a lot of cleaning ahead of me. Take care, have a good night, be safe, make something tasty for dinner, and I will see you in just 2 days' time. This Friday, 5 p.m. EDT. See you then.